Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1, it hung in the hallway, unsigned and dark, an oil painting of a girl no one recognized. But when a hand brushed against the canvas, the paint smeared, fresh and wet to the touch. The family swore they didn't own it, and the girl's eyes looked exactly like their missing neighbors. The Hartfield family had lived in Oakwood Hills, Massachusetts for nearly 15 years. Thomas, an accountant at a mid-sized firm, and his wife Elaine, who taught 4th grade at the local elementary school, were known as quiet, dependable neighbors. Their 2 teenage children, Connor and Melissa, were both honor roll students. The kind of family that blended perfectly into the backdrop of suburban life until the morning of October 17, 2023. That morning began like any other Tuesday. Elaine woke at 6, started the coffee, and went to check on the kids. Connor was already in the shower. Melissa's door was closed. Downstairs, Thomas packed lunches. The routine proceeded with clockwork precision until Elaine noticed something unusual while walking through the main hallway. There, between family photographs and a small decorative mirror, hung a painting that she couldn't recall ever seeing before. The painting depicted a young woman, perhaps 18 or 19, with long dark hair and pale skin. She sat on what appeared to be a wooden chair, hands folded in her lap, looking directly at the viewer. The style was amateur but strangely compelling, all dark shadows and sharp contrasts. The background was an indistinct blur of browns and deep reds. "Thomas," Elaine called out, her voice cutting through the morning quiet. "When did we get this painting?" Thomas appeared from the kitchen, travel mug in hand. "What painting?" As they both stood examining it, Thomas reached out to adjust its position. His thumb grazed the edge of the canvas. "It's wet," he said, rubbing the dark paint between his fingers, like completely fresh. The discovery sent a chill through their otherwise ordinary morning. Neither of them had purchased the painting. Connor and Melissa both denied any knowledge of it when questioned. No one had noticed it the previous evening. "Maybe Mom hung it up yesterday and forgot," Connor suggested, already late for first period. "I absolutely did not," Elaine insisted, her voice tight with growing unease. They might have dismissed it as some bizarre practical joke had Elaine not recognized something in the painted girl's features. Those eyes almond-shaped with a slight downward tilt at the corners. They reminded her unmistakably of Vivian Moss, the 19-year-old who lived across the street with her father. Vivian was a first-year art student at the community college, quiet, somewhat withdrawn, but always polite when their paths crossed. Elaine had noticed that she hadn't seen the girl in several days, which wasn't entirely unusual. Vivian often stayed with her mother in the neighboring town of Millfield. "I'm going to call Richard," Elaine decided, referring to Vivian's father, "just to check if everything's okay." Richard Moss didn't answer his phone. Nor did he answer when Thomas knocked on his door later that morning before leaving for work. The house looked empty, the curtains drawn, mail starting to accumulate in the box by the door. Detective Sarah Linden arrived at the Hartfield home at 2:37 that afternoon. A veteran of Oakwood Hills Police Department's small detective division, Lyndon had the wary eyes of someone who had seen the darker side of their peaceful community. She listened patiently as Elaine and Thomas explained about the painting, occasionally making notes in a small black notebook. "And neither of you hung this painting?" she asked, for what felt to Elaine like the fifth time. "No," they both replied in unison. "And the paint was still wet when you found it this morning?" Thomas nodded. "It's mostly dry now, but yes, it was definitely wet earlier." Detective Lyndon studied the painting without touching it. "And you believe this is Vivian Moss?" "It looks just like her," Elaine insisted. "Same eyes, same hair, and no one's seen her or her father for days." The detective took photographs of the painting from several angles, then carefully removed it from the wall, placing it in a large evidence bag. "I'll need to take this, and I'd like to check your security cameras if you have any." The Hartfields didn't have cameras, but their neighbor across the street, Mrs. Jeller, did. Her system captured the front of both the Hartfield and Moss homes. Detective Lyndon spent that evening reviewing the footage, but found nothing unusual. No one had approached the Hartfield home during the night with a painting. No strangers had entered or left the Moss residence in the past week. That changed the following day when officers conducted a wellness check at the Moss home. They found Richard Moss in the basement, barely conscious, suffering from what appeared to be a self-inflicted overdose. He was rushed to Oakwood Memorial Hospital, where he remained in critical condition for 3 days. During those 3 days, the investigation took several disturbing turns. Forensic analysis of the painting revealed 2 sets of fingerprints Thomas Hartfield's from when he touched the wet paint, and a second set belonging to Richard Moss. The canvas itself was traced to an art supply store in Millfield, purchased 6 days earlier on Richard's credit card. Most concerning was what they found in Richard Moss's home studio, a small converted bedroom filled with painting supplies, unfinished canvases, and dozens of sketches of his daughter. Some dated back years, others were recent, but nothing that explained the mysterious appearance of the portrait in the Hartfield home. And still, Vivian Moss was nowhere to be found. On the 4th day, Richard Moss regained consciousness. His first words to Detective Lyndon were not a denial or explanation, but a question. Did she like it? "Did who like what, Mr. Moss?" Lyndon asked, the recorder on her phone capturing every word. "Elaine, did she like Vivian's portrait? I promised Vivian I'd finish it for her." His voice was weak, his eyes unfocused. The conversation that followed revealed fragments of a story that Detective Lyndon spent weeks piecing together. Richard Moss, a former art teacher, had been painting portraits of his daughter for years. Vivian had apparently taken her own life 2 weeks earlier, something Richard had concealed from everyone, including authorities. In his grief-stricken state, he'd continued a painting Vivian had started of herself, becoming increasingly detached from reality. How the painting ended up in the Hartfield home remained unclear. Richard insisted that Vivian had wanted Elaine to have it, that she'd always admired Mrs. Hartfield, but he couldn't explain how it got there. Security footage showed no evidence of him leaving his house that night. The doors to the Hartfield home had been locked, the alarm system active. Even more disturbing was what investigators found buried in the Moss backyard garden, not Vivian's body, as they initially feared, but dozens of paintings, all of the same subject, all partially burned. Richard claimed they were Vivian's failed attempts at self-portraiture, which she'd asked him to destroy. Vivian's body was eventually discovered in her mother's vacant summer cottage in Maine, confirming Richard's claim about her suicide. The timeline matched his story. What didn't match was the painting itself. Analysis showed it had been created no more than 24 hours before it appeared in the Hartfield home, long after Vivian's death. Richard Moss was ultimately committed to a psychiatric facility, diagnosed with severe depression and psychotic episodes triggered by his daughter's death. He maintained that he had no memory of entering the Hartfield home or hanging the painting. The most he would say in his more lucid moments was, she wanted someone to see her, really see her, before the end. The Hartfield family moved away from Oakwood Hills 6 months later. Their home sold quickly despite the rumors. The painting itself remains in police evidence storage, occasional subject of departmental debates about what really happened that night. Some say Richard Moss simply broke in and hung the painting during a dissociative episode. Others point to the impossibility, the alarm system, the lack of forced entry, the absence of footage showing him approaching the house. A few officers privately note that the girl in the painting doesn't quite match the photographs of Vivian Moss they've seen. The eyes are similar, but something about the expression seems different, more knowing. The case file remains open, one of those mysteries that Detective Linden sometimes revisits late at night when the office is empty and quiet. She keeps coming back to one detail that never made it into the official report. When she first removed the painting from the Hartfield wall, she could have sworn she felt the canvas tremble slightly under her fingers, as if responding to human touch. Like something still alive, trying to communicate. Like something unfinished, waiting to be completed. Crime 2, the creaking had become unbearable, so they pried open the warped planks. Beneath, they found old insulation, clumps of human hair tied with string. Each bundle had a tag attached, some with numbers, others with phrases like, "Don't forget me." One had a child's drawing folded neatly beside it. Julia and Ryan Matthews never expected to find anything unusual when they purchased the Victorian home at 187 Oakwood Drive in Millfield, Pennsylvania. The house, built in 1912, needed extensive renovation, peeling wallpaper, outdated wiring, and those noisy floorboards upstairs that groaned with every step. The couple had saved for years to afford their dream home, excited to restore its original charm while raising their young daughter, Ellie. The Matthews family moved in during October 2019, the crisp autumn air filling their new space with promise. Ryan, an architectural engineer, planned to handle most of the renovations himself. Julia, who worked from home as a medical transcriptionist, appreciated the quiet neighborhood and the spacious attic she converted into her office. Their 7-year-old daughter quickly claimed the bedroom with a bay window overlooking their maple-lined street. The house spoke to us, Julia would later tell investigators. We felt it had stories to tell. If only they had known what stories lay beneath the surface. 3 months after moving in, the creaking from the master bedroom floor had intensified. Ryan initially dismissed it as normal settling in an old house, but Julia insisted something wasn't right. The noise seemed almost deliberate, loud at night, quieter during the day, as if responding to their presence. Ellie began complaining that the floor was talking to her, whenever she played in their bedroom. On January 17, 2020, Ryan decided to investigate. The floorboards near the closet seemed particularly loose. With crowbar in hand, he carefully pried up the first plank, expecting to find nothing more than dust and perhaps some damaged joists. "I remember the smell first," Ryan later recalled in his statement. "Musty, but with something else, something chemical." The space between the floor and subfloor contained dozens of bundles, each approximately 6 inches long. Human hair, blonde, brown, black, red, meticulously tied with twine and what appeared to be surgical thread. Each bundle bore a small paper tag with either numbers or brief messages written in the same careful handwriting. The child's drawing showed a simple house with 4 stick figures standing outside, one notably larger than the others, colored entirely in black crayon. Detective Sarah Monahan of the Millfield Police Department arrived within the hour. A 23-year veteran with experience in unusual cases, she approached the scene methodically. The Matthews family waited downstairs while Monahan and her team photographed and cataloged each item. "In my career, I've seen some disturbing things," Monahan noted in her initial report, but the methodical nature of these bundles suggested something beyond typical criminal behavior. This was ritual. This was memory keeping. The investigation revealed 47 distinct bundles of hair. Forensic analysis confirmed they came from at least 19 different individuals, predominantly female, ranging in estimated age from 4 to approximately 65 years old. Some bundles contained hair from the same source, collected at different times, suggested by variations in length and occasional subtle color changes. The property records show the house had changed hands 7 times since its construction. The previous owners, an elderly couple named Harold and Margaret Whitaker, had lived there for nearly 30 years before selling to the Matthews family. The Whitakers had relocated to Arizona and seemed an unlikely source of the disturbing discovery. When contacted by phone, Margaret Whitaker sounded genuinely shocked. "We never did any major renovations," she explained. "Harold always said old houses should keep their character. We only replaced the kitchen cabinets in '97. As detectives worked backward through the chain of ownership, one name repeatedly surfaced in neighborhood interviews: Dr. Alan Reinhardt, who owned the house from 1963 to 1985. Reinhardt had been a respected dermatologist with a practice in downtown Millfield. "Dr. Reinhardt was always so pleasant," recalled Alina Simmons, 93, who had lived across the street since the 1950s. "Quiet man, kept to himself mostly. His wife died young, cancer, I believe, and he raised their daughter alone. Sweet little thing named Charlotte." What the neighbors remembered as private, investigators began to see as secretive. Reinhardt had maintained a spotless professional reputation, but former patients described his demeanor as clinically detached and uncomfortably observant. He had a habit of complimenting patients' hair, sometimes asking if they'd recently had it cut. The numbered tags corresponded to dates, formatted as MMDDYY, spanning from 1964 to 1984. The handwritten messages ranged from mundane observations like "soft, like silk," to more disturbing notes such as "she didn't mind" and "reminded me of Anna's." Anna Reinhardt, the doctor's wife, had died in 1962, shortly before he purchased the house on Oakwood Drive. Police archives contain no suspicious reports connected to Reinhardt, though several missing persons cases from that era remained unsolved, predominantly young women with no connection to the doctor. Detective Monahan tracked down Charlotte Reinhardt, now Charlotte Weber, living in Seattle. At 64, she expressed shock at the discoveries, but reluctantly agreed to an interview. Dad was complicated, she explained via video call, her voice steady but her fingers constantly fidgeting with her wedding ring. After Mom died, he changed, became obsessed with preserving things. He kept locks of my hair from every haircut in these little envelopes. I always thought it was just grief. Charlotte revealed that her father had maintained a private room in their house, always locked, that she was forbidden to enter. After his death from heart failure in 1991, she had cleared out the house but never found anything suspicious. She had assumed the room contained medical research. He would sometimes bring work home, Charlotte added, her eyes not meeting the camera. I heard voices occasionally, female voices. He told me they were patients requiring special consultations. Forensic analysis of the hair samples yielded partial DNA profiles, but with limited success. The chemical preservative Reinhardt had used degraded much of the genetic material. Still, investigators managed to match 3 samples to cold cases. Teresa Campbell, 19, reported missing in 1968, Diane Foster, 23, who disappeared in 1972, and Lisa Wong, 16, last seen walking home from school in 1979. None of their bodies had ever been found. The child's drawing remained particularly troubling. Forensic art analysts suggested it was created by a child between 5 and 8 years old. The black figure, significantly larger than the others, displayed what experts termed threatening characteristics. When shown the drawing, Charlotte Weber became visibly distressed. I drew that, she whispered after a long silence. That was our house, that black figure. That was how I saw him sometimes. Not my father, but something else wearing his skin. As the investigation deepened, more connections emerged. Reinhardt had specialized in treating childhood skin conditions. Many of his patients had been young girls referred through the local school system. School records from the period showed multiple students who had received dermatological referrals and subsequently changed schools or moved away entirely. The Matthews family never returned to live in the house. They stayed with relatives while the investigation continued, eventually selling the property at a significant loss. The house remains empty today, its windows boarded up, a silent keeper of secrets not fully revealed. The floorboards and their disturbing contents now reside in the evidence locker of the Millfield Police Department. Despite exhaustive investigation, only those 3 victims have been positively identified. The remaining hair samples represent unnamed individuals whose stories may never be known. Detective Monahan still visits the evidence room occasionally, studying the handwritten tags as if they might yield new information. Some cases get under your skin, she told a colleague. This one got under the floorboards of my mind. Dr. Alan Reinhardt, respected physician, grieving widower, devoted father, or something much darker, took most of his secrets to the grave. What remains are fragments, bundles of hair, cryptic notes, and the lingering question of how many lives were cut short to satisfy his mysterious compulsion. Charlotte Weber changed her phone number shortly after the interview and has refused further contact with investigators. Neighbors report she visited Millfield once after the discovery, standing motionless across the street from her childhood home for nearly an hour before driving away. The child's drawing remains pinned to Detective Monahan's bulletin board. The black figure looms over the smaller ones, a shadow that stretches across decades, reaching from beneath old floorboards into the present. Sometimes, late at night in the empty police station, Monahan swears she can hear creaking from the evidence room, as if something is still trying to speak through those bundles of hair, still yearning to be remembered. In Millfield, parents now tell their children to walk quickly past 187 Oakwood Drive, not because they believe in ghosts, but because they understand that real monsters leave physical evidence, locks of hair, carefully preserved, catalogued, and hidden away where no one would think to look. Until someone pried up the floorboards. Crime 3, no one remembered putting it there, but the doll hung above the living room, arms outstretched, nailed through the hands, eyes burned black. The paint on its dress matched the wallpaper, and when it was pulled down, a message was scrawled beneath it. She watches better from here. The Brennan family had lived in the modest two-story colonial on Maple Street in Whispering Pines, Michigan for almost 14 years. Sarah and Tom had raised their 2 children there, Connor, now 18 and preparing for college, and Melissa, 15, with her mother's auburn hair and her father's quiet demeanor. They were by all accounts unremarkable. Tom worked at the local credit union. Sarah taught 3rd grade at Whispering Pines Elementary. They attended the Methodist church on Sundays. They barbecued on holidays. They were the kind of people who faded into the tapestry of small-town America. Until March 12th, 2023. It was Sarah who discovered the doll. She had been cleaning on a Sunday afternoon while the family was at church, a routine she rarely broke. Tom had taken the children to the service while she stayed behind with what she described as a migraine coming on. Later, she would tell Detective Ellis that she had felt uneasy all morning, a pressure behind her eyes, a tightness in her chest, as if something in the house had changed overnight. She was dusting the living room when she looked up. The doll, a porcelain figure with curls the color of wet sand, hung from 2 small nails driven through its palms. Its legs dangled limply. The dress was a perfect match for the faded floral wallpaper that Sarah had been meaning to replace for years. The eyes, once blue glass, had been blackened with what forensics would later determine was a common cigarette lighter. When Tom returned with the children, Sarah was sitting on the couch, staring up at the ceiling, the duster still clutched in her right hand. "I don't know how long it's been there," she kept saying. "I just don't know how long it's been there." Tom called the police immediately. Officer Jenkins arrived first, followed by Detective Lawrence Ellis, who had been with the Whispering Pines Police Department for 22 years. He would later describe the scene as the kind of thing that makes you question what you think you know about people. The doll itself was unremarkable, a mass-produced item from the 1980s, available in department stores across the country. The Brennans didn't recognize it. It didn't belong to Melissa, who had long outgrown such toys. It didn't belong to Connor's ex-girlfriend Emma, who had left several items behind when they broke up 6 months earlier. It wasn't a family heirloom or a forgotten gift. It was simply unknown. When Detective Ellis used a stepladder to carefully remove the doll from the ceiling, the message was revealed, scratched into the plaster with what appeared to be a ballpoint pen. She watches better from here. The investigation began quietly. The Brennans were questioned separately. Their home was examined for signs of forced entry. Fingerprints were taken. The doll was bagged as evidence. Neighbors were interviewed. "They're just normal," said Diane Peters, who lived next door and had known the family since they moved in. "The kind of neighbors who'll lend you a cup of sugar or watch your cat when you're on vacation. Nothing special, nothing strange." But as Detective Ellis dug deeper, inconsistencies began to surface. Small cracks in the foundation of the Brennan family that widened under scrutiny. Connor couldn't account for his whereabouts the previous evening. He claimed to have been at a friend's house, but the friend, Jason Mayers, said Connor had left around 8, claiming he needed to go home. Connor didn't arrive home until after midnight, according to Sarah, who had waited up for him. Melissa had been having trouble at school. Her grades, once exemplary, had begun to slip. Her teacher noted that she had become withdrawn. When asked about the doll, she merely shrugged and said, "Maybe it's been there all along and no one noticed." Tom's alibi was solid. He had been at a credit union conference in Detroit with dozens of witnesses and hotel security footage to confirm his presence. But when Detective Ellis asked about the family's finances, Tom became evasive. Later investigation would reveal that the credit union was under internal audit, with Tom's department specifically flagged for review. Sarah's story remained the same. She had been home all weekend with the children while Tom was away. She had cleaned on Saturday, including the living room, and hadn't noticed anything unusual on the ceiling. She had gone to bed early with a headache. She had woken up still feeling unwell and sent the family to church without her. "I would have noticed," she insisted. "I would have seen it yesterday if it had been there." As days passed, the investigation stalled. No fingerprints were found on the doll except Sarah's, from when she had reached up to touch it in her shock. No one had entered the house according to the security system, which Tom had installed 3 years earlier after a series of break-ins in the neighborhood. The message itself yielded no clues. The handwriting didn't match any family members. The pen used was a common Bic, identical to dozens found throughout the Brennan home. Then, exactly 1 week later, Sarah called Detective Ellis in hysterics. "There's another one," she sobbed into the phone, "in Connor's room. This doll, a smiling boy in overalls, wasn't nailed to the ceiling but placed carefully on Connor's pillow. Its eyes were intact, but its mouth had been sewn shut with black thread, and a small piece of paper protruded from between the stitches. When Ellis carefully extracted it, he found a typed message. Some secrets should stay inside. Connor swore he had no idea how the doll got there. He had been home all day, working on a college application essay in the living room. Melissa had been at a friend's house. Tom had taken Sarah to see a therapist in the neighboring town of Lakewood. The house had never been empty. That evening, Detective Ellis decided to place an officer outside the Brennan home overnight. Officer Michaels sat in his unmarked car from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m., watching all entrances. He reported no unusual activity. Yet in the morning, a third doll appeared, this one in the bathroom medicine cabinet, visible when Tom opened it to retrieve his razor. This doll, unlike the others, was crudely made of what appeared to be socks stuffed with cotton. Buttons served as eyes. The mouth was a red slash of marker. Pinned to its chest was a photograph of Sarah sleeping. The timestamp on the digital photo showed it had been taken at 2:17 a.m. that very night. The Brennans were relocated to a hotel while the investigation continued. Their home was searched thoroughly. Security camera footage from neighboring houses was reviewed. Cell phone records were obtained. Social media accounts were scrutinized. It was Melissa's diary, found hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her closet, that finally provided the first real clue. "I know about the woman in Detroit," she had written 3 months earlier. "I saw the texts on Dad's phone when he left it charging. I don't know if I should tell Mom. I don't know what would happen to us if I did." Tom Brennan, confronted with this evidence, admitted to an affair with a coworker named Vanessa Grimes. The relationship had ended, he insisted, 2 months before the first doll appeared. He had broken it off when Vanessa became possessive and unpredictable. She kept saying she wanted to be part of the family, Tom told Detective Ellis. She wanted to meet the kids. She said she already felt like she knew them from everything I'd told her. Vanessa Grimes was brought in for questioning. A search of her apartment revealed no dolls, no matching porcelain fragments, no evidence connecting her to the incidents. She admitted to the affair but seemed genuinely shocked by the allegations. "I wouldn't do something like that," she said. "I was hurt when Tom ended things, but I'm not crazy. I've moved on." Her alibi for all 3 incidents checked out. Security footage from her apartment building showed her coming home each evening and not leaving until morning. As the investigation continued, the Brennan family began to fracture under the pressure. Connor moved in with his grandparents in Ohio. Melissa became increasingly withdrawn, refusing to speak to investigators. Tom and Sarah's marriage, already strained by the revelation of the affair, deteriorated further. It was in late April, nearly 6 weeks after the first doll appeared, that Detective Ellis received an anonymous email containing a video file. The footage, grainy and dark, showed Sarah Brennan entering a craft store in Lakewood. The timestamp indicated it was 2 days before the first doll was discovered. She could be seen purchasing a porcelain doll, black thread, and a small bottle of paint that matched the color of her living room wallpaper. Confronted with this evidence, Sarah broke down. "He was going to leave us," she whispered. "I found the apartment listings on his laptop, places in Detroit near her. He was planning to abandon us." The dolls, she explained, were meant to frighten Tom into staying, to make him believe that leaving would have consequences, that someone was watching, that his secrets weren't safe. "I didn't think it would go this far," she said. "I just wanted him to be afraid to leave." Tom denied any plans to abandon his family, though subsequent investigation of his online search history confirmed Sarah's claims. The apartment listings were real. So were searches for how to tell your children you're leaving and Michigan divorce laws. No charges were filed against Sarah Brennan. The family entered therapy. Tom and Sarah separated but agreed to co-parent their children. They sold the house on Maple Street to a young couple who knew nothing of its history. The dolls were logged into evidence and eventually destroyed when the case was officially closed in September 2023. But Detective Ellis, in his final report, noted one detail that was never fully explained. The photograph of Sarah sleeping, the one pinned to the third doll, had not been taken with any camera found in the Brennan home. The angle suggested someone standing over her bed. The metadata indicated it had indeed been taken at 2:17 a.m. while Officer Michaels was watching the house and saw no one enter or leave. To this day, Sarah insists she has no memory of placing the third doll in the medicine cabinet, no memory of taking the photograph, no memory of creating the sock doll. Sometimes, she told Detective Ellis during their final interview, I wonder if I did it in my sleep. And sometimes, I wonder if someone else was in our house all along, watching us fall apart. The case of the nailed doll remains officially solved, but in Whispering Pines, some stories refuse to end neatly. Some questions linger in the spaces between official reports, and sometimes, late at night, Detective Ellis still finds himself wondering about the message scratched into the ceiling. She watches better from here. Crime 4, the couch had been inherited from an aunt no one talked about, soft, clean, and heavy. When one of the cushions split open, tiny bones spilled out, too small to be from any pet. X-rays of the others revealed more. The bones had been arranged into shapes, and one of them spelled a name. Sarah Harmon had never wanted the couch. It wasn't her style, burgundy velvet with ornate wooden trim, something from another era. But when her mother called about clearing out Aunt Vivian's apartment in Minneapolis, Sarah felt obligated to take something. The couch was delivered to her small Duluth home on an overcast Tuesday in March 2018, looking strangely elegant against her minimalist furnishings. I barely knew her, Sarah told her neighbor Diane while they were arranging the heavy piece in her living room. Mom and Aunt Vivian had some falling out before I was born. Family gatherings were always tense when she showed up, which wasn't often. Aunt Vivian had died alone at 78, her apartment untouched for nearly 2 weeks before anyone noticed. No children, no spouse, just a small circle of acquaintances who described her as private and particular about her things. She had been a seamstress, working from home for over 40 years, specializing in alterations and custom upholstery. For 6 months, the couch sat largely unused in Sarah's living room. She preferred her worn leather armchair, angled toward the window overlooking Lake Superior. The burgundy couch was just too formal, too reminiscent of a life she hadn't lived. Then came the October evening when everything changed. Sarah was hosting a small dinner party, just 2 couples from work. Tom Barnett, slightly drunk on red wine, fell heavily onto the middle cushion of the couch. There was a sound, not quite a rip, more like the tearing of old thread, and something shifted inside the cushion. "I think I broke your couch," Tom said, laughing nervously as he stood up. A small tear had appeared along the seam of the cushion, and something white was visible inside. Sarah assumed it was batting or foam. The party continued, everyone forgetting about the small incident. It wasn't until the next morning, as Sarah was cleaning up, that she noticed the tear had widened, Picking up the cushion to examine it, she felt something shift inside, something that moved differently from stuffing. When she turned the cushion over, several small white objects fell onto her hardwood floor with a delicate clatter. Sarah's first thought was mouse bones, or maybe bird bones, but as she knelt down to look closer, her stomach tightened. These were too orderly, too uniform. She picked one up. It was lighter than she expected, about the size of her pinky finger. It was unmistakably a bone, but not from any rodent or bird she could identify. They could be from a small animal, Dr. Raymond told her later that day. He was a veterinarian friend who had agreed to take a quick look. But I'll be honest, Sarah, these look human, small human. I think you should call the police. Detective Morgan Slater arrived at Sarah's house 3 hours later. She was in her late 40s, with short gray hair and rectangular glasses that gave her face a serious, geometric quality. She handled the bones with latex gloves, placing them carefully in evidence bags. "You said these came from inside your couch?" Detective Slater asked, her voice neutral but her eyes sharp. Sarah explained about Aunt Vivian, the inheritance, everything she knew, which wasn't much. The detective made a phone call, and within an hour, a small team arrived to take the couch. "We'll need to examine it properly," Slater explained. "If there are more findings inside, we need to document everything carefully." The X-rays confirmed what nobody wanted to believe. Each cushion contained bones, finger bones, toe bones, a few fragments that the medical examiner identified as parts of an infant's cranium. Most disturbing of all, they weren't simply stuffed inside as hiding places. In each cushion, the bones had been arranged in distinct patterns, sewn carefully into the lining. Like someone was creating art, the medical examiner said quietly, pointing to the X-ray images. "See here, that's not random. Those bones form a star shape." In the right armrest, bones had been arranged to spell out a name, Emma. The investigation into Aunt Vivian's past began in earnest. Neighbors who had lived in her apartment building for decades were interviewed. Most described her as quiet, sometimes stern, but always polite. She had rarely had visitors, except for young women who came for fittings or to drop off garments needing alteration. "There was one girl who used to come around more often," said Mrs. Pacheco, who had lived across the hall for 30 years. "Young thing, maybe 17 or 18, came by every few weeks for almost a year, then stopped suddenly. This would have been, 1992 or 93. Vivian seemed different after that, more withdrawn." Police records from that period showed no reports of missing infants in the immediate area. But when they expanded their search to the entire Twin Cities region, they found 3 cases of young women who had gone missing while pregnant between 1990 and 1995. One of them, Emma Rodriguez, had been 8 months pregnant when she disappeared in August 1992. Emma was a good girl, her mother told Detective Slater during an interview conducted in Spanish through a translator. "She didn't want to tell us who the father was. She was ashamed, but she was keeping the baby. She was excited to be a mother." Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes filled with tears. "She went to her sewing class one day and never came home." Emma had been taking private sewing lessons, her mother explained, saving money to make baby clothes. The name of her instructor wasn't in any of Emma's notebooks or calendars, but when shown a photograph of Vivian Harmon taken in the early 1990s, Mrs. Rodriguez's hand flew to her mouth. "That's her," she whispered. "That's the woman who was teaching my Emma." When forensic technicians finished examining Vivian's apartment, they found a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards of her sewing room. Inside were dozens of notebooks filled with drawings, sketches of furniture with intricate interior patterns, diagrams of bone arrangements, and lists of names with dates beside them. Emma's name was there, along with 13 others. Sarah sat in Detective Slater's office, her hands wrapped around a paper cup of cooling coffee. "I don't understand," she said. "My mother never mentioned any of this. How could no one have known?" "People see what they expect to see," Slater replied gently. "Your aunt was a respected craftswoman who kept to herself. The bones were hidden inside her work, and without modern imaging technology, who would have thought to look?" DNA testing was still ongoing, but preliminary results confirmed that at least some of the bones belonged to infants related to two of the missing women, including Emma Rodriguez. The most unsettling discovery came 3 weeks into the investigation. Among Vivian's possessions was a small album of photographs, young women sitting on the burgundy couch, many visibly pregnant, all smiling nervously at the camera. On the back of each photo was a date and a single word, vessel. Sarah's mother finally revealed what little she knew. Vivian had strange ideas, she admitted during questioning. She belonged to some group that believed terrible things about creating vessels for spirits, about how bones could trap energy. I cut ties when I realized how deep she was into it. I never thought she would actually hurt anyone. The full extent of Vivian Harmon's crimes may never be known. The bones recovered from the couch and other furniture pieces found in storage units rented under her name suggested at least 14 victims over 3 decades. Some of the bones dated back to the late 1970s. Most of the young women had been vulnerable in some way: immigrants, runaways, those estranged from their families. The kind of people who could disappear without causing much official concern. For the Rodriguez family, the discovery brought a terrible closure after 26 years of uncertainty. "At least now we know," Mrs. Rodriguez said at a small memorial service held for Emma and her unborn child. "At least now they can rest." Sarah sold her house in Duluth. She couldn't live with the memories, the knowledge of what had happened under her roof, even if only for those few months. "I keep thinking about how I sat on that couch, how I napped on it once," she told Detective Slater before moving away. "All that time they were there, those poor babies, those poor mothers." The burgundy couch now sits in an evidence warehouse, its elegant wooden frame and velvet upholstery belying the horrors it contains. Sometimes, late at night, lab technicians swear they can hear a sound coming from deep within its cushions, something like the distant cry of an infant, though they know that's impossible. And in cities across Minnesota, upholstery shops now include a new step in their restoration process when working on vintage furniture: an X-ray scan, just to be sure. Just to be certain that nothing is hiding within the soft, inviting cushions where people rest their heads and dream of safer times. Crime 5, the nursery was empty, the crib untouched, yet the monitor kept turning on, playing heavy, wet breathing, always from the same angle, always just beneath the mic. When they checked the camera's recording, there was nothing, but the audio included a whisper: "You left me here." For the Winslow family of Cedar Ridge, Pennsylvania, these unexplained sounds would become the beginning of a nightmare that unfolded over the course of 13 cold days in November 2022. Melissa Winslow was 34, a pediatric nurse at Cedar Ridge Memorial Hospital who had recently returned to work after maternity leave. Her husband, Daniel, 36, worked in IT security from their modest two-story home at the end of Sycamore Lane. Their daughter, Emma, had just turned 11 months old, a happy, babbling infant with her mother's hazel eyes and her father's dimpled smile. The Winslows were known as a quiet family, relatively new to the neighborhood, having moved from Pittsburgh 2 years prior for the excellent school district and the safety of the suburbs. The first incident with the baby monitor happened on November 3rd. Melissa had put Emma down for her afternoon nap at 1:15 p.m., the same time as always. She went downstairs to fold laundry while Daniel worked in his home office across the hall from the nursery. At approximately 1:47 p.m., the monitor sitting on the kitchen counter suddenly increased in volume. The breathing sounds were distinct, heavy, labored, almost congested. Melissa initially thought Emma had developed a cold overnight, but when she rushed upstairs, the baby was sleeping peacefully on her back, breathing normally. "I thought I was losing my mind," Melissa would later tell Detective Lauren Rivera. "I picked Emma up, checked her breathing, her temperature, everything was normal, but the sound I heard wasn't normal at all." Daniel suggested it was interference from another device, perhaps a neighbor's monitor on the same frequency. They reset the system, switched channels, and the issue seemed resolved, until 3 days later when it happened again. This time Daniel was alone with Emma. Melissa had taken a 12-hour shift at the hospital, covering for a colleague. At 7:32 p.m., while heating dinner in the microwave, Daniel heard the same breathing through the monitor, followed by what he would later describe as a whisper but distorted like someone talking through water. He checked on Emma immediately. The nursery was cold, colder than the rest of the house, though the thermostat settings were consistent throughout. "I heard it clearly," Daniel insisted to Detective Rivera during his second interview. "It said, 'You left me here,' plain as day. I'm not superstitious, I'm not religious. I work with technology for a living, but I know what I heard." The Winslow's neighbor across the street, Alina Bradshaw, a 72-year-old retired librarian, reported seeing a figure moving in the nursery window that same evening while Daniel was downstairs. "At first, I thought it was Daniel checking on the baby," Alina stated. "But then I saw him walk into the kitchen downstairs with a mug, so who was upstairs leaning over that crib?" By November 8th, the incidents had escalated. The monitor would activate at random intervals, sometimes playing the breathing sounds for up to 40 minutes. Melissa began recording the audio on her phone. In one recording, reviewed by Cedar Ridge Police Department's technical specialist Marcus Torres, the whispering voice says distinctly, "She's not yours to keep." Daniel contacted the baby monitor's manufacturer, who claimed no similar incidents had been reported. They suggested replacing the unit entirely, which the Winslows did on November 9th. The new monitor worked perfectly for exactly 1 day. On November 10th, Melissa was bathing Emma when the monitor in the bedroom suddenly turned on. The familiar breathing returned, followed by soft humming, a lullaby that Melissa recognized but couldn't place. When she reviewed the nursery camera footage later that evening with Daniel, they discovered something troubling. a shadow moving across the wall, though no one was in the room. The camera's night vision made the shadow appear elongated, distorted, almost unnaturally tall. "We considered calling the police," Melissa explained. "But what would we say? Our baby monitor is picking up creepy sounds. We thought someone was playing a cruel prank." That night both Winslows had trouble sleeping. At 3:17 a.m. the monitor activated again. This time, instead of breathing or whispering, they heard crying, not Emma's cry, which they knew intimately, but the cry of a different infant. Daniel checked the nursery immediately. Emma was sound asleep, but her mobile, which operated on a wind-up mechanism, was slowly turning above her crib, though neither parent had wound it. The following morning, November 11th, Melissa discovered a small handprint on the inside of the nursery window, too large to be Emma's, too small to be an adult's. When measured by investigators, the print appeared to belong to a child approximately 3 to 4 years of age. Detective Rivera was finally brought into the case on November 12th, after the Winslows reported a possible break-in. Nothing was missing from the home, but Emma's baby clothes had been rearranged in her dresser. A pacifier that had been lost weeks earlier was found in the center of her crib. The Winslows were certain someone had been in their home while they slept. The investigation revealed no signs of forced entry. The home security system showed no breaches. All doors and windows had remained locked. Detective Rivera initially suspected the Winslows themselves, considering the possibility of sleepwalking, medication side effects, or even postpartum psychosis, but medical examinations ruled out these theories. On November 14th, while reviewing property records, Detective Rivera discovered something the real estate agent had never disclosed to the Winslows. 3 years before they purchased the home, another family had lived there briefly, the Camerons. The Camerons had a 4-year-old son named Ethan and a newborn daughter. According to county records, the infant had died of SIDS in the very room that now served as Emma's nursery. The investigation took an unexpected turn when Melissa, increasingly sleep-deprived and anxious, found a small blue sock tucked behind the changing table, a sock too big for Emma, who had never worn blue. When Detective Rivera showed the sock to Marion Cameron, Ethan and the deceased infant's mother, she identified it immediately as belonging to her daughter. "We moved out 2 weeks after she died," Marion explained in her statement. "We couldn't bear to be in that house. I thought we had packed everything." The final incident occurred on November 15th. At exactly midnight, every electronic device in the Winslow home malfunctioned simultaneously. Lights flickered, appliances turned on and off, and the baby monitor emitted a high-pitched squeal before going silent. In the ensuing darkness, Daniel used his phone's flashlight to check on Emma. She was standing in her crib, the first time she had ever pulled herself up to a standing position, staring at the corner of the room and babbling as if having a conversation. When Melissa entered seconds later, she reported feeling an intense cold spot by the window, though it was a mild night for November. As Daniel reached for Emma, the nursery door slammed shut, seemingly on its own. It took both parents pushing against it to reopen it, as if something on the other side was holding it closed. The Winslows left the house that night, staying with Melissa's sister in Pittsburgh. They never returned to live in the Cedar Ridge home. The case officially remains open but inactive, with the Cedar Ridge Police Department classified as unexplained disturbances. Detective Rivera, in her final report dated December 3, 2022, wrote, "While there is insufficient evidence to determine if a crime was committed against the Winslow family, the psychological impact of these events cannot be understated. Whether through natural means, technological malfunction, or deliberate harassment by persons unknown, the Winslows experienced genuine fear in their home." The house on Sycamore Lane remained vacant for 8 months before being purchased by a young couple from Ohio. To date, they have reported no unusual occurrences with their own baby monitor. However, their 2-year-old son occasionally points to empty corners of the nursery, smiling and waving as if greeting an unseen friend. The baby monitor that caused the Winslows so much distress sits in an evidence locker at the Cedar Ridge Police Department. Occasionally, officers claim its power light blinks on momentarily, though the device has no batteries and remains unplugged. And sometimes, very late at night, when the station is nearly empty, the faint sound of breathing can be heard from the sealed evidence box, heavy, wet, and waiting. Crime 6, it had always hung in the hallway, 4 smiling relatives on a hiking trip, but one day someone noticed a 5th figure. Behind the group, blurry but unmistakable, stood a person with no facial features. The original digital file had only 4 people. The print was never altered. In the small town of Millersville, Pennsylvania, the Brennan household had always been considered unremarkable. Sarah Brennan, 42, worked as a pediatric nurse at the local hospital. Her husband, Thomas, 44, taught American history at the high school. Their 2 teenage children, Emma and Jacob, were honor roll students who participated in extracurricular activities and had close circles of friends. They lived in a 2-story colonial home with a well-kept lawn on Maple Street, where neighbors would often see Thomas mowing on Saturday mornings and Sarah tending to her flower garden in the evenings. The hallway of their home displayed a chronological journey of their lives together. Wedding photos, baby pictures, vacation memories, all neatly arranged in matching frames. Among them was a photograph taken 3 years ago during a family hiking trip to the Adirondacks. Sarah, Thomas, Emma, and Jacob standing together on a scenic overlook. Pine trees framing the background, bright blue sky above. They had asked another hiker to take their picture that day. Nothing about the moment had seemed unusual. On Tuesday, April 14th, 2023, Emma had a friend over to study for a biology test. 17-year-old Lily Walsh had been to the Brennan home countless times before, but on this visit, something caught her attention as she walked down the hallway to Emma's bedroom. "Who's that person standing behind you guys in this picture?" Lily asked, pointing to the hiking photo. Emma looked at the familiar image with confusion. "What are you talking about? It's just the 4 of us." But when they looked closer, there it was, a 5th figure standing several feet behind the family. The figure appeared blurry, as if slightly out of focus compared to the Brennans, but it was unmistakably human-shaped, wearing what seemed to be dark clothing. Most disturbing was where the face should have been, just a pale, featureless oval. "That's weird," Emma said, her voice faltering. "I don't remember anyone else being there." Later that evening, Emma showed the photo to her parents. Thomas immediately retrieved his laptop and pulled out the original digital file. The 4 Brennans were there, smiling in the sunshine, but there was no 5th figure in the background. The digital image and the printed photo were otherwise identical, same smiles, same poses, same clothing. Only the printed version, which had hung in their hallway for 3 years, showed the mysterious figure. "It must be a printing error," Sarah suggested, though her voice betrayed her unease. Thomas agreed, or maybe something happened when we had it developed at Walgreens. They decided to take the photo down, replacing it with another family picture. Jacob, the youngest at 15, objected. "But what if it means something? What if it's trying to tell us something?" His parents dismissed the idea, attributing his reaction to an overactive imagination fueled by too many horror movies. But Emma noticed how her mother's hands trembled slightly as she removed the photo from the wall. 2 days later, Sarah Brennan didn't return home from her night shift at the hospital. Her car was found in the staff parking lot, her purse still inside with wallet and phone untouched. Security cameras showed her walking to her car at 11:23 p.m., but she never appeared to enter the vehicle. There was no sign of a struggle, no evidence of foul play. Sarah Brennan had simply vanished between the hospital entrance and her parked Honda Civic. Detective Marion Reeves was assigned to the case. A veteran of the Millersville Police Department with 22 years of experience, Reeves had handled missing persons cases before, but something about Sarah's disappearance felt different from the start. The complete absence of forensic evidence was unusual. No fingerprints besides Sarah's on her car door handle. No tire tracks indicating another vehicle had pulled up alongside hers. No witnesses despite the well-lit parking lot. "People don't just disappear into thin air," Reeves told her partner, Detective Paul Sandoval, as they reviewed the security footage for the 4th time. "There's always something, always a trace." But in Sarah's case, there wasn't. As days passed, Thomas Brennan grew increasingly distraught. He barely slept, constantly checking his phone for news or calls. Emma took over caring for Jacob and managing the household, her own fear manifesting in rigid organization and routine. Jacob withdrew into himself, spending hours in his room, researching missing persons cases and unexplained phenomena online. It was Jacob who first made the connection, 1 week after his mother's disappearance. "Dad," he said, entering Thomas's study where his father sat staring blankly at bills he couldn't focus on. "Remember that weird photo, the hiking one with the figure in the background?" Thomas looked up, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "What about it?" "I think we need to look at it again." Thomas reluctantly retrieved the photo from the drawer where he had placed it. They examined it carefully, and Jacob pointed to something they hadn't noticed before. The blurry figure in the background wasn't just standing there. Its arm appeared to be slightly raised, pointing towards Sarah. Detective Reeves was skeptical when Thomas brought the photo to the police station the next day. "Mr. Brennan, I understand you're looking for answers, but this is likely just a photographic anomaly, nothing more." "Then explain why the digital original doesn't have it," Thomas insisted, his voice rising, "and why it seems to be pointing at my wife who is now missing." To appease him, Reeves had the department's forensic technician examine the photograph. The analysis revealed something strange. The paper and ink composition of the area containing the 5th figure was chemically identical to the rest of the print. Whatever had created the image, it wasn't added after printing. It was as if the figure had somehow been present in the very moment the photo was developed. Meanwhile, the investigation into Sarah's disappearance continued. Detectives interviewed hospital staff, reviewed patient records, and examined Sarah's recent communications. Nothing seemed amiss in her life, no secret relationships, no financial troubles, no enemies. Her last text message had been to Thomas at 10:45 p.m., finishing up paperwork, home soon, love you. 3 weeks after Sarah vanished, another night shift worker at the same hospital disappeared. Michael Chen, a 35-year-old radiologist, failed to return home after his shift. His car was found in the parking lot, keys still in the ignition. Security footage showed him approaching his vehicle at 11:17 p.m., then glancing over his shoulder as if someone had called his name. He turned towards something off camera, took a few steps in that direction, and then walked out of frame. He never reappeared on any of the hospital's cameras. When Detective Reeves informed Thomas about the second disappearance, he immediately asked, "Did Michael Chen have his photo taken recently? Something that was printed?" The question struck Reeves as odd until Thomas explained his theory. The detective, now more willing to explore unconventional angles, discovered that Chen had indeed been photographed at a hospital fundraiser 2 months earlier. The printed copies had been displayed in the hospital lobby. In Chen's photo, standing among a group of colleagues, there appeared to be a space where no one stood, yet a shadow fell across the floor as if cast by an invisible presence. As word spread about the two disappearances and the strange photographic anomalies, anxiety rippled through the hospital staff. Some refused to work night shifts. Others began taking photos of themselves daily, checking for unexpected figures or shadows. The local newspaper ran a story titled "The Millersville Mystery," when photographs predict disappearances, which attracted attention from larger media outlets and online forums dedicated to unsolved mysteries. 4 months after Sarah's disappearance, a maintenance worker discovered something in an abandoned storage room in the hospital's oldest wing, an antique camera and developing equipment dating back to the 1940s. Hospital records indicated the room had been sealed off during renovations in 1978 and somehow forgotten, absent from building plans. The camera belonged to Harold Winters, a former hospital photographer who had worked there from 1943 to 1962, documenting medical procedures and staff events. Further research revealed that Winters had been suspected in the disappearances of 6 hospital employees during his tenure, but was never charged due to lack of evidence. He died in 1976, taking whatever secrets he possessed to his grave. The most disturbing discovery came from Winters' personal journal, found in a box alongside the camera. In it, he wrote of capturing more than just images and preserving essences beyond the physical plane. The case remains officially unsolved. Sarah Brennan and Michael Chen were never found. Thomas and his children eventually moved away from Millersville, unable to bear remaining in a home where Sarah's absence was a constant presence. The photograph of the hiking trip was submitted as evidence and remains in police custody, locked in an evidence room where some officers claim the blurry figure in the background seems to change position ever so slightly each year. Detective Reeves retired early after the Brennan case, troubled by her inability to provide answers. In her personal files, which remained sealed until after her death in 2029, she left a note about the case. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Some truths are better left uncaptured. I've destroyed every printed photograph of myself just in case. I recommend others do the same. In Millersville, residents still speak in hushed tones about the disappearances. The hospital implemented a strict no photography policy on its premises. The photo printing section at the local Walgreens closed down after multiple customers reported seeing strange shadows and figures appearing in their developed pictures, figures that weren't present in the digital originals. And somewhere perhaps Harold Winter's camera continues its work, capturing more than just light and shadow on paper, collecting souls one frame at a time, adding them to a collection that exists somewhere between this world and whatever lies beyond the veil of our perception. Crime 7, it looked like a normal stairwell, carpeted, lit, clean, but it ended abruptly at a solid brick wall. No marks, no explanation. Someone had painted a door onto the bricks, and behind one loose panel, investigators found a tooth embedded in mortar. The brick wall was discovered in the basement of the Westfield family home in Beckley, West Virginia. The 3-story Victorian house had stood proudly on Maple Avenue since 1918, passing through several owners before Martin and Clara Westfield purchased it in February 2017. The couple had fallen in love with the historical charm, the intricate woodwork, and the spacious rooms that would allow them to start the family they had always dreamed of. Martin was 38, a well-respected architect with a local firm. Clara, 35, worked remotely as a graphic designer. Neighbors described them as friendly but private, the kind of couple who would wave from their porch but rarely attended community gatherings. Their renovation projects were constant but quiet, always done with respect for the home's original character. 3 months after moving in, Clara told her sister Rebecca that they had discovered something odd in the basement. She mentioned a staircase but didn't elaborate. When Rebecca pressed for details, Clara laughed it off, saying they were probably just remnants of an old renovation. Martin had promised to look into it. The following winter was particularly harsh in West Virginia. Heavy snowfall kept most residents indoors, and the Westfields were no exception. Clara's calls to her family became less frequent, which Rebecca attributed to her sister's new project, renovating what would become a nursery. Clara had shared the happy news that she was expecting their first child in June. It was March 15, 2018, when Rebecca received a text from Clara's phone that seemed oddly formal. Taking a break from social media and calls. Need time to focus on the baby. We'll reach out when ready. Rebecca tried calling immediately, but the call went straight to voicemail. When she drove to the house the next day, Martin answered, looking tired but composed. He explained that Clara was resting upstairs and that pregnancy had made her anxious and withdrawn. He asked Rebecca to respect their privacy during this difficult time. Something about Martin's demeanor troubled Rebecca. His eyes never quite met hers, and his hands trembled slightly as he gripped the door frame. She noticed fresh paint on his fingernails. When she asked when she could see Clara, his answer was vague, soon, when she's feeling better. For weeks, Rebecca received occasional texts from Clara's phone. They were short, grammatically perfect messages that lacked her sister's usual warmth and casual style. No emojis, no abbreviations, none of the inside jokes they typically shared. The texts always came in the evening, usually around 8:30 p.m. On April 27, Rebecca finally contacted the Beckley Police Department, requesting a welfare check. Officers Nathan Harding and Samantha Powell visited the Westfield home that afternoon. Martin greeted them calmly, explained that Clara was at her mother's house in Charleston, and even showed them a text conversation to prove it. The officers noted nothing suspicious and left after a brief look around the main floor. What the officers didn't know was that Clara's mother had passed away 3 years earlier. Rebecca's persistence eventually led Detective Lisa Morno to take a closer look at the case. When confronted with the information about Clara's deceased mother, Martin claimed a misunderstanding. Clara was actually visiting an aunt, not her mother. But cell phone records showed that Clara's phone had not left the vicinity of the house since February. On May 10, police executed a search warrant of the Westfield home. Martin remained cooperative, though visibly nervous. The search revealed nothing unusual until officers descended into the basement, where they found the carpeted staircase leading to the brick wall. Unlike most of the house, this area showed signs of recent construction. The painted door on the brick surface was remarkably detailed, with a false doorknob that had been carefully shaded to appear three-dimensional. Forensic analysts noticed that one brick near the bottom of the wall was slightly loose. When removed, they discovered a human molar embedded in the fresh mortar. DNA testing would later confirm it belonged to Clara Westfield. Behind the wall, investigators found a small space containing Clara's personal belongings, her phone, laptop, and a journal with entries that stopped abruptly on February 22, 2018. The final entry read, "M spent all night in the basement again. Says he's preparing a surprise. He's been different since we found the old staircase. Sometimes I hear him talking down there when he thinks I'm asleep." As detectives pieced together the evidence, a disturbing timeline emerged. Historical records showed that the house had once belonged to a doctor with questionable practices in the 1930s. Rumors of illegal procedures and missing patients had circulated for years, though nothing was ever proven. During renovations in 1967, workers had discovered human remains in the walls but attributed them to the house's age and possibly unmarked graves from before its construction. Martin's internet search history revealed extensive research on the house's past owners and multiple searches about communicating with previous residents and houses that change people. His architectural drawings, found in his home office, included detailed plans for what he called the transition space, the area behind the brick wall. When questioned about Clara's whereabouts, Martin's behavior became increasingly erratic. He insisted that Clara had gone where she needed to go and that the house had shown him the way. He claimed the brick wall had always been there, that he had merely restored what was meant to be. Cadaver dogs brought to the scene indicated strongly at multiple locations within the house: the basement, the master bedroom wall, and peculiarly, the newly renovated nursery. Ground-penetrating radar revealed anomalies in the soil beneath the foundation. Martin Westfield was arrested on May 17, 2018, charged with the suspected murder of his wife. During his initial psychological evaluation, he remained calm and articulate, explaining that he had been selected as caretaker and that Clara had become part of the house's history, just as others had before her. The most chilling evidence came from Martin's personal journal, where he had meticulously documented what he called the house's hunger and his growing conviction that it required contributions to maintain its character. He wrote of hearing whispers from the brick wall, teaching him how to preserve the home's legacy. As investigators continued their careful dismantling of sections of the house, they discovered 7 more teeth embedded in various walls, belonging to at least 3 different individuals. Records showed that 2 previous owners had also reported family members missing, cases that had remained unsolved for decades. Clara's body was never found. The tooth remained the only confirmed physical evidence of her presence in the house after February. Martin refused to provide any information about what happened to her remains, maintaining only that she was where she belonged and that she was part of something greater now. Rebecca still visits the house on Maple Avenue, which stands empty and decaying as the legal proceedings continue. The painted door on the brick wall remains visible, though faded now. Sometimes local teenagers dare each other to sneak into the basement and touch it, claiming they can feel warmth radiating from the bricks, as if something or someone waits just on the other side. Martin Westfield sits in a psychiatric facility, evaluated as unfit to stand trial. He spends his days drawing architectural plans of houses with hidden rooms and staircases that lead nowhere. His doctors note that he often speaks of returning home and how the house is incomplete without him. He insists that if you press your ear against the right brick, you can hear Clara humming softly, the lullaby she had planned to sing to their child. The staircase that led to a brick wall has become something of a local legend in Beckley. But for those involved in the investigation, the case represents something far more disturbing, a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying mysteries aren't found in the unsolved questions, but in the answers we discover behind walls we were never meant to breach. Crime 8, the house had been vacant for years, but the basement reeked of perfume, cheap, cloying, and fresh. There was nothing down there but an empty rocking chair and a trail of rose petals ending in ash. On the concrete, written in lipstick, were the words, "She's still waiting." Detective Marcus Simmons had seen a lot in his 23 years with the Oak Ridge Police Department, but something about this scene made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The real estate agent who called it in stood at the top of the stairs, refusing to come back down. Her name was Diane Powell, and she had been showing the property to a young couple when they discovered the basement door, which had apparently been sealed shut with multiple locks from the outside. "I've been trying to sell this place for months," Diane explained, her voice trembling slightly. The previous owner, Eleanor Harmon, passed away last year at 92. No children, no relatives that anyone knew of. The property went to the bank. Marcus nodded, jotting notes in his small black notebook. "And no one's been in this basement. When was the last time someone lived here?" "That's the thing," Diane replied, wrapping her cardigan tighter around herself despite the June heat. "Eleanor moved to a nursing home about 5 years ago. The house has been empty since then. The basement door was padlocked from the outside, and according to the property inspection, it hadn't been opened in decades. Eleanor apparently told neighbors she never used it because of the steep stairs. She had bad knees." Marcus turned his attention back to the basement. The rocking chair looked old but not ancient, perhaps from the 1970s. The rose petals formed a deliberate path from the chair to a small pile of ash in the corner. The lipstick writing was fresh. The waxy red letters still glistened under his flashlight. "What did the couple who found this say?" Marcus asked. "Not much. They were spooked. The husband broke the padlock because the wife wanted to see the entire house before making an offer. Once they saw this, they bolted. Marcus called for forensics. This wasn't necessarily a crime scene, but something wasn't right. The perfume smell was overwhelming, like someone had emptied several bottles of drugstore rose fragrance onto the floor. But there were no bottles, no containers, just the smell, the chair, the petals, the ash, and those words. Alina Harmon had lived a quiet life in Oak Ridge. Born in 1927, she had worked as a high school English teacher until retiring in 1987. She never married, had no children, and kept to herself. Neighbors described her as pleasant but private. She tended her garden, attended church on Sundays, and volunteered at the local library. Nothing remarkable, nothing suspicious. The nursing home staff had little to add. Alina had been suffering from dementia in her final years, sometimes lucid, sometimes lost in memories. She often spoke about someone named Rebecca, though no one by that name ever visited her. Staff assumed Rebecca was a childhood friend or perhaps a sister who had passed away. The investigation might have ended there, just a strange scenario in an empty house, if not for what forensics found in the ashes. Bone fragments, small but unmistakably human. The case took a turn when officers located Alina's only known friend, Martha Caldwell, now residing in a retirement community 2 towns over. Rebecca, Martha's eyes widened at the detective's question. Why, yes, Alina had a daughter named Rebecca. This contradicted everything they'd heard about Alina being childless. But that's impossible, Marcus said. There's no birth certificate, no school records, nothing to indicate Alina ever had a child. Martha's weathered hands trembled slightly as she reached for her tea. Well, that's because Rebecca wasn't her biological daughter. Alina took her in around 1975. The girl was maybe 16, 17. A runaway, I think. Alina never formally adopted her. She was too old for the system by then. Did you ever meet this Rebecca? Martha shook her head. Alina was private about her home life. She mentioned Rebecca occasionally, said she was troubled but had a good heart. Then, sometime in the late 70s, Alina told me Rebecca had moved away to California to pursue acting. Never heard about her again. And you never thought that was strange? Martha shrugged. Alina seemed relieved, to be honest. Said Rebecca was where she needed to be. I figured the girl had been difficult to handle, and Alina, being nearly 50 by then, was ready for some peace and quiet. Marcus pressed further. Did Alina ever mention the basement of her house? A look of confusion crossed Martha's face. Basement? Alina's house didn't have a basement. Her eyes narrowed with certainty. I visited her for tea at least twice a month for over 40 years. There was no basement in that house. Records from the county assessor's office confirmed that the original house plans from 1952 showed no basement. Yet there it was, a fully excavated space beneath the main floor, roughly 15 by 20 feet, with concrete walls and floor that appeared to have been added later, possibly in the early 1970s, according to the forensic architect consulted by the department. A search through yearbooks and local newspaper archives from the mid-1970s yielded no information about a teenager named Rebecca in connection with Alina or the local high school. It was as if the girl had never existed in Oak Ridge, except in Alina's stories and possibly in her basement. The bone fragments were sent to the state crime lab. The results came back showing they belonged to a female, aged approximately 16-18, who had died approximately 45-50 years ago. Cause of death could not be determined from the fragments alone. The case took another unexpected turn when forensics discovered something else. The concrete floor of the basement had been poured over an older dirt floor. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a rectangular disturbance in the soil beneath, approximately the size of a grave. As the investigation continued, more details emerged about Alina's life. Former colleagues at the high school remembered her as dedicated but somewhat rigid. One former teacher, now in his 70s, recalled that Alina had taken a sudden leave of absence during the fall semester of 1977, returning in January looking years older. When asked about it, she had simply said she'd been dealing with a family matter. The real estate records showed that Alina had taken out a substantial loan against her house in 1975, though there were no visible improvements to the property that would justify such an expense. However, the timing aligned perfectly with when the basement would have been constructed. Meanwhile, officers canvassed the neighborhood, speaking with elderly residents who might have lived there during the 1970s. Most had no recollection of a teenage girl living with Alina, but one neighbor, 88-year-old Walter Jenkins, provided a crucial detail. "I remember seeing a young girl at Alina's a few times in the summer of '75, he said, his mind surprisingly sharp for his age. Pretty thing, long dark hair. Alina introduced her as her niece visiting from out of state. But then I started hearing music from the house late at night, not Alina's kind of music, mind you, rock and roll stuff. Figured the girl was staying longer than a visit." "Did you ever see the girl leave or stop seeing her?" Marcus asked. Walter thought for a moment. "Can't say I specifically remember her leaving. That fall and winter were rough for me. My wife was sick and I wasn't paying much attention to the neighbors. By spring, I didn't see the girl anymore. Assumed she'd gone back wherever she came from." "Did Alina ever mention what happened to her?" "No, and I didn't ask. Alina changed after that winter, became more withdrawn. Started putting locks on everything, new deadbolts on the doors, locks on the windows. I figured maybe she'd had a break-in." The excavation of the basement was handled with the delicate precision of an archaeological dig. The team worked slowly, methodically removing the concrete layer by layer. What they found beneath confirmed their suspicions. A human skeleton, female, wrapped in what appeared to be the decomposed remains of a patchwork quilt. The skeleton was missing the smaller bones of the right hand, the same bones that matched the fragments found in the ash pile. The medical examiner estimated the remains had been there for approximately 47 years and belonged to a female between 16-18 years old at time of death. There was a fracture on the skull, but whether it was the cause of death or occurred post-mortem could not be definitively determined. No identification was found with the remains. No jewelry, no clothing tags, nothing that could immediately identify the girl as Rebecca or anyone else. The only personal effect was a small, tarnished locket containing a tiny photograph that had degraded beyond recognition. The investigation hit a bureaucratic wall when it came to missing persons reports from that era. Records from the 1970s were spotty at best, especially for runaways who might have crossed state lines. Without DNA from a relative for comparison, identifying the remains would be challenging. Then came a breakthrough from an unexpected source. A retired nurse named Gladys Perkins, who had worked at the nursing home where Alina spent her final years, came forward after seeing the news about the discovery. Alina had these episodes near the end, Gladys explained. Days when she'd become extremely agitated, insisting she needed to go home to check on Rebecca. We thought it was just confusion, but during one particularly bad episode, she became lucid for a moment and grabbed my arm. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "I didn't mean to do it." She was going to leave me just like everyone else. I just wanted her to stay still and listen. Gladys had documented the incident in Alina's file, but hadn't thought much of it at the time. Patients with dementia often made confusing statements, but in light of the discovery, those words took on a chilling new meaning. The investigation pieced together a theory. Alina, a lonely middle-aged woman, had taken in a teenage runaway named Rebecca around 1975. For reasons unknown, perhaps an argument, perhaps an accident, perhaps something more sinister, Rebecca died while in Alina's care. Instead of reporting it, Alina had concealed the death by burying the body in the basement she had specially constructed. The fresh perfume smell and the recent lipstick writing remained unexplained. The house had been vacant, the basement locked from the outside, yet someone had been there recently, someone who knew about Rebecca, who perhaps wanted to ensure she wasn't forgotten. Investigators checked the visitor logs at Alina's nursing home in the weeks before her death. Most visitors were staff or clergy, but there was one odd entry. A woman who signed in as R. Harmon just 2 days before Alina passed away. The staff member who had been on duty didn't recall the visitor clearly, just that she was middle-aged with dark hair. Security footage had already been overwritten. Could Alina have had another daughter, or perhaps Rebecca had a daughter of her own before her death? The lipstick message, "She's still waiting," suggested someone wanted justice, or at least acknowledgement, for what had happened all those years ago. As Detective Marcus Simmons closed his notebook after months of investigation, one thing was clear. Alina Harmon had taken her most significant secrets to the grave. The girl in the basement, presumed to be Rebecca, would likely never get justice in any traditional sense. Her remains were eventually given a proper burial in the town cemetery, her headstone reading simply, "Rebecca, unknown but not forgotten." The house on Oak Ridge Lane remained unsold. No matter how many times the real estate company cleaned the basement, the smell of perfume always returned. The rocking chair, removed as evidence but later returned to the property, was found rocking gently whenever anyone entered the room, as if someone had just stood up. Some questions, Marcus realized, were never meant to be answered. Some stories continued long after their principal characters were gone, and sometimes in the quiet spaces between facts and evidence, the truth remained elusive, hanging in the air like the lingering scent of cheap rose perfume. Crime 9 not on the surface behind it. The glass was flawless to the touch, but deep within the mirror, something had etched long, frantic lines from the inside out. And when they shined a light just right, words became visible in reverse. "Let me out." The mirror belonged to Madeline Winters, a 32-year-old accountant from Chester Creek, Pennsylvania, a town where neighbors still brought casseroles when someone fell ill. Madeline had inherited the antique mirror from her grandmother, Eleanor, who had passed away 3 months earlier. The piece was Victorian, ornate brass framing a tall oval of glass that stood in the corner of Madeline's bedroom like a silent sentinel. Madeline had always been methodical. Her colleagues at Harding and Associates described her as reliable, precise, and quietly competent. She lived alone in a modest 2-bedroom house on Sycamore Lane, a street lined with mature trees and well-maintained lawns. Every morning she would rise at exactly 6:15, prepare a light breakfast, and leave for work by 7:30. Her routine rarely varied until the mirror arrived. At first, the changes were subtle. Madeline began mentioning to her friend Sarah that she was having trouble sleeping. "I keep having this feeling that someone's watching me," she said over coffee one Tuesday morning in April. Sarah noticed the dark circles forming under Madeline's eyes but attributed them to grief. After all, Madeline and her grandmother had been exceptionally close. By early May, Madeline had started keeping a journal. The entries, initially organized and coherent, gradually became more disjointed. May 3rd, 2023, woke up at 3:17 a.m. again. That's 3 nights in a row now. I feel like there's something in my bedroom. I've checked the closet, under the bed, behind the curtains. Nothing. But when I look at Grandma's mirror, I swear the reflection isn't quite right. The angles seem wrong somehow. May 9th, 2023, Sarah thinks I should see someone about my insomnia. Maybe she's right. I've started avoiding my bedroom altogether. Slept on the couch last night. For the first time in weeks, I didn't wake up in the middle of the night. May 12th, 2023, I heard scratching last night, like fingernails on glass. When I turned on the light, it stopped. I'm keeping the lights on tonight. On May 15th, Madeline didn't show up for work. This was unprecedented. In 7 years of employment, she had never missed a day without calling in advance. Her supervisor, Robert Keller, tried calling her cell phone repeatedly. When she didn't answer, he contacted Sarah, who agreed to stop by Madeline's house on her lunch break. Sarah would later tell Detective James Horvath that something felt wrong the moment she pulled into Madeline's driveway. Her car was there, but the curtains were all drawn, Sarah recounted. Madeline always opened them first thing in the morning. She said it helped her wake up properly. When repeated knocking yielded no response, Sarah used the spare key Madeline had given her years earlier. The house was unnaturally quiet. In the kitchen, a half-prepared breakfast sat on the counter, a bowl of oatmeal now congealed and cold, a cup of coffee untouched. The living room showed no signs of disturbance. It was in the bedroom that Sarah found the first real indication that something was wrong. The bed was unmade, pillows scattered across the floor as if thrown in haste. Madeline's journal lay open on the nightstand, a pen beside it. The last entry was dated May 14th. I saw her in the mirror tonight, Grandma Eleanor, but it wasn't her, not really. Her eyes were wrong, they were just empty, and when she smiled I could see that her teeth were filed to points. She pressed her hand against the glass from the inside. There were scratches on her arms. She kept mouthing something I couldn't understand. "I'm taking the mirror to Dr. Lester tomorrow. He collects antiques. Maybe he can tell me what's wrong with it." But Madeline never made it to Dr. Lester's. When police arrived at her house, they found no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle beyond the disarrayed bedroom. Madeline Winters had simply vanished. Her purse, phone, and car keys remained in the house. Her car sat in the driveway. The only thing missing, according to Sarah, was the antique mirror. Detective James Horvath, a 15-year veteran of the Chester Creek Police Department, approached the case with measured skepticism. People don't just disappear, he told his partner, Detective Maria Santos. There's always a trace. The investigation began with Madeline's immediate circle. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was in college. She had no siblings. Her social life consisted primarily of monthly book club meetings and occasional dinners with Sarah. Her romantic history revealed nothing unusual, a few relationships that had ended amicably, the most recent over a year ago. When they interviewed her neighbors, an interesting detail emerged. 80-year-old Mrs. Patterson, who lived across the street and suffered from insomnia, reported seeing a van parked outside Madeline's house at approximately 4:30 a.m. on May 15th. I couldn't see much, she admitted. It was dark and my eyes aren't what they used to be, but it was a larger vehicle, stayed for about 20 minutes, then drove away with its lights off. A canvass of the neighborhood revealed no security cameras that might have captured the vehicle. The case seemed to be going cold until June 7th, when Dr. Edward Lester came forward with information. A young woman brought me an antique mirror about 3 weeks ago, he told Detective Horvath. Said she found it by the dumpster behind her apartment building. I gave her $60 for it. It was a nice piece, Victorian, probably 1880s. I didn't realize it might be connected to your missing person case until I saw the flyer with Ms. Winters' photo. The woman who sold me the mirror wasn't her. When shown a photo lineup, Dr. Lester identified Lisa Crane, a 29-year-old with a history of petty theft and drug offenses. When brought in for questioning, Lisa initially denied any knowledge of the mirror or Madeline Winters. After 3 hours of interrogation, however, her story changed. Look, I didn't have anything to do with whatever happened to that woman, Lisa insisted. My boyfriend Terry knew a guy who needed help moving some furniture, paid us $200 cash to help load a van. It was dark, middle of the night. We went to this house and the guy had us carry out just one thing, this big mirror. Said the rest of the stuff wasn't ready yet and he'd call us back. Never did. Terry took off a few days later. We had a fight. I was short on rent, so I sold the mirror. Terry Mueller couldn't corroborate Lisa's story. He had left Chester Creek on May 17th and, according to his mother in Ohio, had mentioned needing to lay low for a while. Attempts to locate him proved unsuccessful. The mirror itself yielded the most disturbing evidence. When forensic technicians examined it, they discovered fine scratches on the inside surface of the glass, impossible to detect without special lighting. Most were random patterns, but in one section the reversed words, "Let me out," were clearly visible. More concerning were the partial fingerprints found embedded in the silver backing of the mirror, prints that matched Madeline Winters. How fingerprints could appear behind the sealed glass of a mirror baffled the forensic team. It's physically impossible, the lead technician told Detective Horvath, unless the mirror was taken apart and reassembled, but there's no evidence of that. Even stranger was what they found when they removed the backing entirely. A strand of long brown hair that DNA testing confirmed belonged to Madeline, and a small scrap of fabric that matched the pajamas Sarah described Madeline wearing the night before her disappearance. The case took an unexpected turn when Detective Santos discovered that Alina Winter's death might not have been from natural causes as initially thought. The 84-year-old woman had been found deceased in her bed, apparently from heart failure, but a review of her medical records showed no history of cardiac issues. More significantly, her journals, recovered from a storage unit Madeline had rented, contained entries similar to those in Madeline's journal. February 2nd, 2023, the mirror has been in my family for generations. My mother warned me never to sleep with it in my bedroom. I've always kept it in the hallway, but lately I've been drawn to it. Sometimes I think I see someone else looking back at me, not my reflection, but someone standing behind me. When I turn around, no one is there. February 10th, 2023, I'm having the dreams again. I'm trapped behind glass, watching the world but unable to reach it. I pound my fists against the cold surface until my hands bleed, but no one hears me. When I wake, my hands ache as if I've really been pounding on glass all night. The last entry was dated February 20th, 2023, 3 days before Elena was found dead. Something is coming through, the boundary is thinning. I should destroy it, but I can't bring myself to break the mirror. It's been in our family too long. Perhaps Madeline will understand what to do. I've left her instructions in the letter. No letter was ever found among Madeline's possessions. 1 year later, the disappearance of Madeline Winters remains unsolved. The mirror sits in an evidence locker at the Chester Creek Police Department. Occasionally, officers report hearing faint scratching sounds coming from the storage room, but investigations reveal nothing out of place. Detective Horvath, now approaching retirement, still visits the evidence room once a week. He stands before the covered mirror, never removing the cloth that conceals its surface, and whispers questions to which he doesn't expect answers. Sometimes, he later admits to his wife, he thinks he hears whispers in response, a woman's voice, desperate and faint, repeating the same words over and over. I'm still here. I'm still here. Sarah visits Madeline's house every month, maintaining it in her friend's absence. The bedroom remains exactly as it was, though Sarah refuses to enter it after dark. I keep hoping she'll come back, she tells anyone who asks. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the house, I swear I catch glimpses of her out of the corner of my eye, just for a second, like a reflection passing by. As for Terry Mueller, his driver's license was found 6 months after Madeline's disappearance in a pawn shop 3 states away. The shop owner remembered him clearly, a nervous young man who sold an antique hand mirror for well below its value. Kept looking over his shoulder, the owner recalled. Said he needed to get rid of it, said he saw things in it that couldn't be there. The hand mirror, when recovered, had the same ornate brass design as Madeline's full-length mirror, and etched on the inside of the glass, visible only under specific lighting, were 2 words, "Find me." Story 10. The aged apartment held secrets within its walls, pipes that murmured, floorboards that whispered tales of the past. However, the new tenant, Sarah, sensed a different presence lingering in the shadows of her top-floor sanctuary. It was the sound of footsteps, a rhythm too deliberate, too hauntingly steady to be dismissed as mere echoes. Each night, these phantom steps traced unseen paths above her, a ghostly dance across the ceiling in the hushed darkness. One evening, emboldened by a flicker of curiosity tinged with unease, Sarah tentatively tapped the ceiling with a broomstick, hoping to dispel the eerie cadence. The footsteps halted abruptly, swallowed by the heavy silence that followed. Then, in a chilling reply, a single knock resounded from within the very structure of the ceiling, a hollow whisper from hidden realms. Sarah, unwilling to confront the unsettling truth that lurked beyond her comprehension, chose silence over alarm. She convinced herself that it was merely the settling of the old building, or perhaps a curious creature seeking refuge in the attic's forgotten corners. Night after night, she sought solace in the blaring television, in the solace of headphones that drowned out the methodical footfalls that traversed the unseen passages above her. Detective Morris was drawn into the enigma of the apartment when a routine repair unearthed a clandestine world concealed within the building's walls. A maintenance worker, startled by a hidden crawlspace discovered behind a section of drywall outside Sarah's dwelling, stumbled upon a realm that defied the known dimensions of the structure. Within this secret enclave, illuminated by the stark beam of a flashlight, lay remnants of a clandestine existence, a makeshift living space adorned with discarded wrappers, empty bottles, and a tattered blanket, and a small, ominous notebook. The notebook, a chronicle of meticulous observations, detailed Sarah's every movement and habit with unsettling precision. From her daily routines to the minutiae of her life, the pages bore witness to an obsession that transcended reason. The handwriting, once tidy and composed, descended into chaos with cryptic symbols etched along the margins. "The subject resists my influence," the final entry lamented. "She dares to defy me. No one defies me." As forensics delved deeper into the hidden passages, they uncovered a labyrinthine network that intertwined with the building's very bones, a sinister web that spanned decades and connected disparate apartments. Yet it was Sarah's abode that served as the focal point, the epicenter of an unseen gaze that had haunted its residents for generations. Former tenants spoke in hushed tones of feeling watched, of inexplicable disturbances that had driven them from their homes in silent terror. One by one, their stories intertwined, weaving a tapestry of dread that led back to a single enigmatic figure, Edward, the quiet man who had dwelled in the shadows, unseen yet ever watchful. The revelation of microscopic blood spatter within the hidden recesses of the building provided a chilling link to Martin Weaver, a vanished soul whose fate had remained a mystery for years. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a pattern emerged, a pattern of silent observers, of hidden passages, and of a malevolent presence that lingered in the spaces between walls. The manhunt for Edward, now known as Edward Mercer, unfolded like a dark symphony of secrets unveiled. His trail of deception led to a remote cabin, a twisted lair adorned with the remnants of lives observed and consumed. Photographs lined the walls, faces frozen in unknowing innocence, while maps detailed the intricate web of hidden passageways that had ensnared the unsuspecting. As the shadows of the past cast their long fingers over the present, Detective Morris found himself haunted by the specter of Sarah, a ghostly presence lost to the depths of a labyrinthine conspiracy. The echoes of her footsteps lingered in the empty spaces of his thoughts, a reminder of the darkness that dwelled just beyond the threshold of perception. And so, as night descended and silence reigned, Detective Morris found himself gazing up at the ceiling, listening for the phantom footsteps that echoed in the chambers of his mind. In the stillness of his own home, he pondered the unseen watchers, the hidden observers who lingered in the shadows, waiting for their next victim to unknowingly cross their path. Story 11. The ancient box lay buried beneath layers of forgotten memories in the attic of the old house, a relic of the past waiting to be discovered. Among the dusty Polaroids inside, snapshots of joyous occasions and family gatherings painted a picture of normalcy and innocence. Yet as she reached the final photo, a sense of unease crept over Rebecca. In that captured moment, within her own living room, sat a family she didn't recognize. And there, lurking in the shadows behind them, a man stood watching, a silent observer from the past. A chill ran down Rebecca's spine as she studied the eerie photograph, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. The family in the image, with their frozen smiles and carefree demeanor, seemed oblivious to the danger that loomed just out of sight. Carrying the unsettling photo downstairs, every creak of the wooden steps amplified the eerie silence that had enveloped the house since she had moved in. Placing the photo on the cold kitchen counter, Rebecca scrutinized it under the harsh glow of the fluorescent light. The familiarity of the surroundings, a familiar archway, distinct crown molding, and the sunlit bay window contrasted sharply with the unknown faces captured in the image. This was her home, yet these people remained strangers, frozen in time. Enter Detective Morgan, a seasoned investigator with a weathered leather jacket and eyes that missed nothing. With a methodical air, he examined the photo, flipping it over to reveal its blank back. "Tell me about the Nelsons, the previous owners," he inquired, his voice a low rumble in the quiet kitchen. Rebecca confessed her lack of knowledge, explaining that the Nelsons had moved out of state before she bought the house. The detective's investigation unfolded gradually, uncovering a pattern of mysterious disappearances linked to the house's history. The Sutherlands, the family in the photograph, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that spanned 15 years. Each family that had lived in the house before them had met a similar fate, sudden disappearances after exactly 1 year of residency. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, a haunting truth emerged. The original builder of the house, Samuel Whitfield, had a shadowy past that intertwined with the chilling events that had unfolded within its walls. Despite reports of his demise in a construction accident, his presence lingered, casting a sinister shadow over the house and its inhabitants. The investigation led to a grim discovery in the basement, a macabre graveyard of preserved bodies, each belonging to a family that had called the house their home. Among the grim evidence, a camera tied the threads of the mystery together, capturing moments of unsuspecting families, blissfully unaware of the malevolent presence that watched from the darkness. Rebecca, now a mere pawn in a sinister game, was forced to abandon her home under police protection. As she sought safety in a hotel room, a chilling phone call shattered the fragile peace of the night, signaling that the darkness that haunted the house had not yet released its grip on her life. To this day, the house stands as a silent witness to its dark past, its secrets shrouded in mystery. The elusive figure of Samuel Whitfield remains an enigma, his legacy haunting those who dare to seek the truth behind the photographs that captured more than just memories. And in the shadows of a new dawn, unseen eyes continue to watch, waiting for the next chapter in a story that transcends time and reality. Story 12. The apartment had sat in silence for months, a vacant space waiting to reveal its secrets to the new tenants who dared to step inside. Dust settled like a gentle blanket over forgotten corners, and the air held whispers of memories long faded. But there was one door that stood stubbornly closed, a mystery within a mystery, locked from the inside as if guarding something precious or something sinister. When the landlord finally summoned the courage to force the door open, the new tenants braced themselves for the expected sight of old coats or discarded belongings. However, what greeted them was far more chilling than they could have imagined. The walls of the closet were marred with deep, uneven scratches, as if clawed by desperate hands seeking escape from an unseen terror. And nestled in the corner, like a relic of a bygone era, lay an old flip phone, its screen still faintly aglow with a single unread message. Detective Morgan Shaw, a seasoned investigator with a keen eye for the shadows that lurked in the corners of human nature, felt a shiver dance down her spine as she surveyed the haunting scene before her. It was not the presence of blood or violence that unsettled her, but the silent testimony of those agonizing scratch marks a silent scream etched into the very fibers of the wood. "We need forensics here immediately," she said to her partner, Officer Reed, who was already capturing the haunting evidence with his camera. "And gather the records of the previous tenants. There is a story hidden within these walls, waiting to be told." The message on the forgotten phone simply whispered, "I know what you did." The landlord, a man whose nervous demeanor betrayed his unease, spoke of the previous tenant in hushed tones. A young woman, he said, quiet and unassuming, who had vanished without a trace, leaving behind unpaid rent and a mystery that lingered like a ghost in the empty rooms. Forensic analysis uncovered a chilling truth within those scratch marks, traces of blood, most belonging to a single individual identified as Emma Caldwell, a young woman reported missing months ago. But there were others, two sets of DNA intertwined in a macabre dance of secrets, one a mystery, the other belonging to a man long declared dead. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, a tale of interrupted lives and hidden truths emerged from the shadows of Emma's apartment. Her belongings spoke of a life abruptly halted, unanswered mail, a forgotten coffee mug, a neatly made bed that had not been slept in for far too long. The trail led to a new boyfriend mentioned in passing, a shadowy figure with a presence that loomed large in Emma's final days. Surveillance footage captured a man in a baseball cap, his features carefully shielded from view, entering her building on the fateful night she disappeared. And then a breakthrough partial fingerprints on the closet door, belonging to a man long believed to be dead. Derek Mercer, a name that sent a chill down Shaw's spine, a man with a past shrouded in violence and deception. As the investigation unfolded, a web of darkness unfurled, connecting Emma's fate to another missing woman, Lynette Porter, whose voice echoed from the depths of captivity, recounting a tale of fear and manipulation orchestrated by a man consumed by his twisted desires. Behind heavy doors in a remote property, Shaw and her team discovered Lynette alive but broken, a prisoner of Mercer's sickening fantasies. Journals filled with his warped obsessions, photographs of women who bore a striking resemblance to Emma and Lynette, and haunting video recordings that captured the moment of Emma's descent into darkness. "He thought he could silence us," Lynette whispered, her eyes haunted by the memories of captivity. "But we found our voices in the darkness he created." The manhunt for Derek Mercer spanned across boundaries, a pursuit driven by the urgent need to stop a predator who thrived on the suffering of his victims. When they finally cornered him, Mercer was a picture of calm detachment, his eyes holding secrets that sent a shiver through even the bravest of souls. During the trial that followed, a tale of deception and depravity unfolded, revealing the depths of Mercer's twisted mind and the lengths he had gone to in order to maintain his facade of innocence. But justice, like a steady hand in the darkness, prevailed, casting Mercer into the shadows of a prison cell where his illusions could no longer hold sway. As the judge pronounced a sentence of life without parole, Mercer's smile held a hint of something dark and knowing, a secret satisfaction that only he could comprehend. But it was Lynette's voice, clear and unwavering, that rang out in the courtroom, a beacon of light cutting through the shadows of fear and despair. "He locked us in darkness," she declared, her gaze unwavering, "but now we stand in the light." And so, as the case drew to a close, Detective Shaw held onto the memory of Emma's closet, a silent witness to the horrors that lingered in the spaces between the known and the unknown. It served as a reminder that sometimes the most chilling tales are not written in blood, but in the silent echoes of those who fought to survive in the face of unspeakable darkness. Story 13. Renovations always uncover the unexpected: old newspapers, broken trinkets, forgotten photographs. But when Sarah and Michael tore up the floorboards of their newly acquired Victorian-era home, they stumbled upon a hidden letter carefully tucked beneath the wood. The paper, fragile with age, bore a faded message: "Don't trust the one who knocked." Before they could process this cryptic warning, 3 sharp knocks reverberated through the silent house, sending shivers down their spines. The couple had been drawn to the charm and history of the estate auction property, unaware of the chilling secrets it held. Detective Alina Reed, with her seasoned partner, delved into the mystery, the exposed floorboards revealing a dark void below. With practiced hands, Reed retrieved the note, already tainted by the unsuspecting touch of Sarah and Michael. Their fear was palpable, genuine. Background checks on the couple yielded nothing amidst just newlyweds with stable lives. However, the house bore a complex past. Once owned by the Hargrove family, it had stood vacant since the passing of the last resident, Margaret Hargrove, an elderly widow. Despite her unassuming life and peaceful passing, something sinister lingered in the air. Forensic analysis dated the note back 2 decades, its frantic handwriting hinting at fear and urgency. Franklin, Margaret's late husband, had been a respected figure in the community, a teacher known for his woodworking skills, but darkness lurked beneath the surface. A former student recalled Franklin's descent into paranoia, fueled by a mysterious watcher. The truth unraveled when Reed interviewed Margaret's frail sister, revealing a haunting tale of debt and terror. Franklin's unpaid gambling debts had attracted the attention of a menacing figure known as the Collector, whose 3 ominous knocks had plagued Margaret's final days. Desperate to settle the debts, Franklin's actions spiraled into tragedy, culminating in a hidden grave beneath the house. Forensic excavation exposed the remains of the long-missing loan shark, Victor Mercer, confirming a sordid tale of greed and violence. Margaret's diaries, unearthed from the attic, painted a portrait of a tormented soul haunted by the echoes of those fateful knocks. Justice, belated yet resolute, was finally served. Sarah and Michael, unable to bear the weight of the house's dark legacy, sold the property, leaving it abandoned and silent. Local whispers speak of ghostly echoes in the night, three distinct knocks that pierce the stillness. Whether it's the groans of aging timber or something more sinister, no one can say for certain. As Detective Reed concluded her investigation, she reflected on the enigmatic nature of unsolved mysteries. Some secrets, she mused, are destined to remain shrouded, their truths buried within the echoes of the past. The note, a haunting relic of bygone terror, serves as a chilling reminder. Don't trust the one who knocked. Margaret's final warning lingers, a testament to the enduring enigma of human nature and the shadows it casts. Story 14, The Forgotten Doll. In the dim light of the attic, beneath a worn blanket, they discovered it. A porcelain doll, its delicate features frozen in time, with wide, unblinking blue eyes. Sarah and Michael, a young couple who had recently purchased the old Victorian house, chuckled at the sight of the forgotten antique. Little did they know, that night would mark the beginning of a mysterious journey. As they settled into bed, a strange heaviness hung in the air, and the silence seemed to stretch endlessly. Morning came, and the doll was no longer in the attic. It now sat ominously at the foot of their bed, a silent observer of their every move. The house they had been so enchanted by at auction held a hidden past, shrouded in whispers of tragedy and unexplained occurrences. Detective Rachel Winters was called to the scene on a crisp autumn morning, where she found a chilling tableau. The female victim lay in the master bedroom, her body contorted in an unnatural pose, eyes wide with fear. Nearby, the male victim seemed to have been fleeing in a desperate attempt to escape an unseen threat. The meticulous crime scene offered no easy answers. Detective Winters noted the deliberate positioning of the victims, comparing the scene to a doll meticulously arranged in a display case. As the investigation unfolded, eerie details emerged, painting a picture of a haunting presence within the house. Neighbors shared unsettling accounts of shadows moving in empty rooms and ghostly laughter echoing in the dead of night. Forensic analysis uncovered traces of antique doll materials throughout the house, as if an unseen force had woven a sinister thread connecting the past to the present. Delving into the property's history revealed a chilling pattern of previous owners meeting mysterious ends, each linked to the attic space where the doll had been found. The discovery of old photographs hinted at a dark secret the doll maker who once resided in the house, his final creation bearing an uncanny resemblance to the haunting doll that now held sway over Sarah and Michael's lives. As Detective Winters pursued leads that defied logic, a distant relative of the doll maker shared tales of arcane practices and whispered rituals that bound spirits to inanimate objects. The line between reality and nightmare blurred as the investigation spiraled into the realm of the supernatural. Despite her dogged efforts, the case remained unsolved, its conclusion eluding even the most seasoned investigators. The doll, a silent witness to the unfolding tragedy, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and lingering unease. The house passed into new hands, its dark history a cautionary tale whispered among those who dared to tread its halls. Detective Winters, haunted by the unsolved mystery, retired from a career marked by the inexplicable and the unknowable. And so the tale of the forgotten doll faded into the mists of time, a spectral presence that lingered in the shadows of memory, waiting to be awakened on quiet nights by the soft laughter of a child, echoing through the empty rooms of the old Victorian house. Story 15. In the heart of the city, there stood a quaint little coffee shop that had become a sanctuary for a mysterious man known only as John Doe. Every day he followed the same routine, same table, same order, same enigmatic presence. The barista recognized his face, but his identity remained a puzzle to everyone else. Then one fateful day, John Doe failed to appear. When concerned authorities investigated his usual spot, they stumbled upon a forgotten wallet left behind. Inside, a driver's license bore a face but no name, no address, just an eerie blank space where his identity should have been. Delving further into the mystery, they reviewed the security footage, hoping for answers. Detective Sarah Mercer, a woman of keen intuition, studied the recordings with a furrowed brow. The figure known as John Doe seemed ordinary as he entered the coffee shop, clad in a navy coat and carrying a weathered leather bag. Yet his vanishing act defied all logic. "Play it again," Mercer requested, her voice barely above a whisper. The footage replayed the sequence of events: John's arrival during the bustling morning hours, his solitary demeanor at the secluded corner table, his sudden disappearance after a trip to the restroom corridor, but there was no trace of him leaving through any exit. Desperate for clues, Mercer demanded a closer examination of the bathroom footage. The revelation was chilling. John Doe had never set foot inside. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air, leaving nothing but bafflement in his wake. Back at the precinct, Mercer meticulously sifted through the contents of the abandoned wallet. Blank spaces replaced personal details, credit cards linked to non-existent accounts, and a lone business card whispered of an enigmatic phone number. A call to the number yielded only silence, punctuated by the rustle of unseen pages. The barista's recollections painted a portrait of a solitary man, a silent observer, a soft-spoken enigma. His notebook, filled with cryptic symbols and sketches of unfamiliar architecture, stumped even the most seasoned codebreakers. Mercer's search for answers led her to a peculiar discovery hidden in plain sight. Each morning, a flicker in the timestamp coincided with John's entrance, a subtle anomaly overlooked by many. Returning to the coffee shop, Mercer scrutinized the surroundings, her gaze drawn to an ancient mirror hanging between the entrance and the restroom hallway. Symbols etched on its frame mirrored those in John's notebook. Questioning the shop owner unearthed a long-forgotten truth. The mirror, untouched for decades, concealed a secret compartment. Inside lay a trove of identical wallets, a journal chronicling decades of mysterious experiments, and a chilling final entry hinting at imminent closure. The journal spoke of temporal manipulation, reality crossings, and a fragile balance maintained within the coffee shop's walls. As Mercer unraveled the threads of John Doe's existence, peculiar incidents unfurled around the shop, a dance of reflections, phantom sightings, and whispers of the impossible. An unexpected revelation came in the form of Margaret Keller, a former physicist with ties to John Doe's past. She unveiled the truth behind the man who defied reality: Daniel Weston, a brilliant mind lost to the confines of quantum mirrors and parallel dimensions. Returning to the coffee shop, Mercer uncovered the unsettling connection between Weston's experiments and the shop's very foundation. The building stood atop the remnants of Weston's vanished laboratory, a nexus of realities where the boundaries grew thin. In the shadows of a late-night review, Mercer caught a glimpse of the impossible, a fractured reality where two versions of Daniel Weston coexisted, separated by a fragile veil. Rushing to the coffee shop, she found the mirror shattered, a final warning etched in the shards. As the case of the man who didn't exist remained shrouded in mystery, the coffee shop's doors closed, and the truth slipped through the cracks of memory. Daniel Weston's fate lingered in the whispers of the wind, his legacy a haunting enigma that echoed through time. And as the world moved on, Detective Mercer found solace in her solitude, her pen dancing across pages akin to Weston's own. A fragment of a mirror adorned her wall, a silent witness to the secrets that eluded even the most vigilant eyes, its surface shimmering with untold stories of a man lost to the fabric of reality. Story 16, The Enigmatic Victorian. She crossed the threshold into the abandoned Victorian, a swirl of dust dancing in the musty air around her. The house stood frozen in time, its peeling walls and shrouded furniture telling tales of neglect. Every step she took felt like a journey into a time capsule, except for one peculiar detail: the doors. No matter which door she opened, it always led her back to the same room, trapping her in an endless loop within the parlor's confines. The only escape was the way she had entered, but when she turned back, the front door had vanished into thin air. The discovery of Morgan Pierce's lifeless body turned the once forgotten Victorian into a scene of mystery and intrigue. Detective Sarah Lind stood at the threshold, observing forensic experts moving silently through the dimly lit interior like spectral whispers. The house had gained a reputation among locals for its unsettling nature, where compasses spun wildly and visitors felt an eerie presence watching them. Now it held secrets far more sinister than mere urban legends. The initial examination suggests she passed approximately 3 days ago, the medical examiner murmured, his words barely audible in the heavy silence. The cause of death appears to be asphyxiation. Morgan was found seated in an antique chair in the parlor, facing the entrance as though expecting someone. Her expression was serene, hands folded neatly in her lap, devoid of any signs of struggle or defensive wounds. The scene exuded a chilling stillness that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators. Lind inquired who discovered the body. Her partner responded, a real estate agent showing the property to potential buyers. They stumbled upon her sitting there, mistaking her for a trespasser until they drew closer. The house had remained vacant since the passing of its previous owner, Eleanor Blackwood, nearly 5 years earlier. Legal disputes had left the property abandoned, unwanted, and forgotten, save for vandals and thrill-seekers who dared to trespass. Morgan Pierce, a 26-year-old graduate student delving into architectural anomalies for her thesis, was described by friends as meticulous, driven, and captivated by spaces that defied conventional norms. The allure of the abandoned Victorian, renowned for disorienting its visitors, must have been irresistible to her. Her roommate reported her missing 2 days ago, Lind noted. Morgan mentioned visiting the house where people get lost for her research. As the investigation unfolded, it emerged that Morgan had frequented the house in the weeks leading up to her demise. Her journal entries chronicled peculiar acoustic phenomena, inexplicable cold spots, and doors that seemed to lead to different places with each opening. In her final entry, she expressed her intent to document what she termed spatial inconsistencies, yet the specialized equipment she had mentioned was nowhere to be found. During the autopsy, an unexpected revelation surfaced. Trace amounts of a rare alkaloid were detected in Morgan's system, derived from a plant used in shamanic rituals. While the substance could induce disorientation and hallucinations, the quantity found was not lethal. She wasn't into recreational drugs, her boyfriend insisted. Morgan was meticulous in her research practices. She wouldn't have jeopardized her perception intentionally. Deleted messages on Morgan's phone, recovered through digital forensics, unveiled conversations with an individual who shared her fascination with the house, someone claiming to grasp its enigmatic essence. The exchanges grew progressively intimate and enigmatic. The house retains its memories, one message alluded. It longs for someone to comprehend. The investigation led Lind and her team to Adam Reeves, an architectural historian who had corresponded with Morgan. His expertise in rare spatial phenomena had captivated her, and their professional connection had evolved into a more personal bond. When questioned, Reeves appeared genuinely devastated by Morgan's passing. "The house carries a reputation," he explained. Its original architect employed optical illusions and deceptive perspectives to bewilder and disorient. Morgan believed there was a deeper layer to it, something transcending mere design tricks. However, Reeves had a solid alibi for the estimated time of Morgan's demise. Surveillance footage depicted him delivering a lecture at a university symposium several hours away. A breakthrough emerged from an unexpected source: Alina Blackwood's grandson, now residing abroad. Upon being contacted by the investigators, he divulged a long-held family secret. "My grandmother wasn't the sole Blackwood to perish in that house," he disclosed. Others met their end there, always discovered in the parlor, appearing serene. The family termed it the claiming. He provided the investigators with journals spanning generations, chronicling deaths initially attributed to heart failure or strokes. The recurring pattern was unmistakable: individuals spending extended periods in the house eventually succumbed to what the family euphemistically labeled the influence. A subsequent search of the property unveiled a concealed compartment behind the parlor's fireplace. Within it lay Morgan's missing equipment and a startling discovery. An alcove held artifacts from various indigenous cultures, arranged meticulously in a geometric pattern. At the center rested a weathered figurine, its features smoothed by generations of handling. Analysis identified the figurine as symbolizing a deity associated with liminal spaces, thresholds between realms. Residues on the artifacts matched the alkaloid found in Morgan's system. The case took a chilling turn when the dust patterns within the house hinted at another presence during Morgan's passing. Partial fingerprints, distinct from Morgan's or any known visitors, were recovered from doorknobs throughout the dwelling. 3 weeks into the inquiry, Adam Reeves was found deceased in his dwelling. Mirroring Morgan's fate, he was seated facing the entrance, a tranquil expression masking the presence of the same alkaloid in his system. Clutched in his hand was a key that unlocked no door in his abode, but fitted seamlessly into the hidden compartment within the Victorian. In his final correspondence, sent to himself as a testament, Reeves inscribed, The house doesn't ensnare you physically, it captivates your perception. Morgan was correct, the doors lead where they always have, but something tricks you into believing you're retracing your steps. Once you grasp the verity, departure is within reach, yet by then the desire to leave has dissipated. Officially, the case remains open, designated as suspicious deaths under scrutiny. The Victorian has since been condemned, its access restricted by authorities. Nonetheless, whispers persist of lights flickering inside on certain nights and of visitors who vanish without a trace. Some locals maintain that the house claims those who delve too deeply into its mysteries. Others speculate that Morgan and Reeves unearthed something ancient and potent, dwelling within the interstices of conventional reality. The truth remains as elusive as an exit within a house where every door leads back to the start. Story 17, The Enigmatic Manor. The new proprietors found it peculiar the crackling of the old intercom system in the dead of night, a relic of a bygone era refurbished but left to gather dust in obscurity. Then one evening the husband, driven by curiosity, pressed the button. A whisper emanated through the speaker, sending shivers down his spine. "Why have you returned?" Startled, he recoiled, hands trembling. His wife, hovering behind him, murmured, "I never uttered those words." The Victorian manor stood serenely amidst ancient oak trees, its worn façade contrasting with the modernized interior. Daniel and Meredith Parker had acquired the estate for a surprisingly modest sum, despite the real estate agent's uneasy demeanor during the showing. The intercom system, a vintage amenity linking all chambers, had captivated the history-loving couple. Detective Sarah Reeves arrived at the property, gravel crunching under her unmarked vehicle's tires. The call had hinted at a potential break-in, but a cryptic undertone in the dispatcher's voice suggested a deeper narrative. Daniel Parker, a tall figure with a pallid complexion, welcomed her at the entrance, even the dim porch light accentuating his pallor. "It all began with the intercom," he recounted, leading Detective Reeves through the grand foyer. Initially static, then whispers, then coherent sentences. My wife thought I was hallucinating until she heard it herself. In the living room, Meredith sat stiffly on an antique sofa, hands clenching a steaming cup left untouched. "We unearthed something hidden behind the wall," she divulged abruptly. Daniel aimed to expand the kitchen pantry, and when he dismantled the drywall, her voice wavered. Concealed behind the wall, enveloped in decaying plastic, lay a small leather-bound journal. Detective Reeves donned gloves before delicately unfurling its brittle pages. The script, eloquent yet frenzied, belonged to a woman named Elena, the apparent former resident. Her entries chronicled a creeping suspicion that her husband, Vincent, harbored malevolent intentions towards her. "Last entry dates back 30 years, Daniel elaborated. "After that, silence. The previous owners mentioned purchasing it from an elderly gentleman who relocated to a retirement community. Further investigation unveiled that Vincent and Elena Blackwood had indeed owned the house. Records indicated Vincent sold the property shortly after Elena allegedly departed. No divorce proceedings, no change of address, no financial activities under Elena's name post the final journal entry." Detective Reeves marshaled a team to meticulously scour the property. Ground-penetrating radar disclosed anomalies beneath the garden shed's concrete foundation. As investigators breached the decades-old concrete, the truth materialized in the form of human remains. Forensic analysis identified the skeleton as a woman in her 40s, displaying signs of cranial trauma. A gold wedding band discovered among the remains bore an inscription, "To Alina, my eternal love." The case against Vincent Blackwood swiftly coalesced. Despite his advanced age and residence in a care facility, his comprehension remained sharp when confronted with the damning evidence. His response, delivered with an unsettling calm, sent chills down the detective's spine. "She wouldn't cease her prattling," Vincent intoned. "Endless chatter through that infernal intercom, incessantly checking on me, interrogating me. I disconnected it, yet she reconnected it herself, claiming she needed to reach me always, regardless of my location in the house." He gazed up, eyes vacant. I craved solitude. Throughout his confession, Vincent unveiled the elaborate fabrication of Alina abandoning him, even dispatching fabricated postcards to neighbors from various locales, inscribed in forged penmanship. He had resided in the house for years thereafter, treading daily over the concrete concealing his wife's remains. The trial concluded swiftly, with Vincent pleading guilty to the heinous crime. The presiding judge underscored the premeditated nature of the offense and the decades of deceit that ensued. Daniel and Meredith eventually sold the house, unable to endure its grim past. Before departing, they held a commemorative ceremony for Alina in the now restored garden. The intercom system was dismantled during renovations by the subsequent owners. Workers reported static and murmurs during the removal, attributing them to interference from their tools. Detective Reeves revisited the Blackwood case file once more before its archival. As she sealed the manila folder, she pondered how the house seemed to transcend time to unveil its enigma. Justice finally caught up with Vincent Blackwood thanks to Alina's method of making her voice heard. The local law enforcement dubbed the case the house that echoed back. Occasionally, Detective Reeves would pass by the property on her way home. She never halted, yet she would decelerate, window slightly ajar, listening for whispers borne on the breeze. Story 18, The Realtor's Secret. The listing from the realtor made no mention of a basement. The blueprints, meticulously examined, revealed no trace of it. Yet hidden beneath the old carpet in the living room of the Mercer family's new suburban home, a door waited in silence. Its handle, heavy and rusted, resisted as 3 sets of hands worked together to pry it open. A rush of stale air greeted them, carrying with it the earthy scent of dampness. The steps leading down into darkness beckoned, promising secrets long buried. Expecting a storage space, the family instead found a solitary chair beneath a swaying light bulb, casting eerie shadows across the room. And on the wall behind the chair, a chilling display awaited them, a row of photographs depicting moments from their own lives, captured surreptitiously. The arrival of Detective Sarah Connors at the property signaled the beginning of a haunting investigation. The crime scene unit had already cordoned off the area, yellow tape billowing in the wind like a warning. Mrs. Mercer's voice had trembled over the phone as she recounted the discovery below their home, a discovery that shattered their sense of security. Connors, with a sense of purpose in her movements, directed the forensic team to document every detail of the hidden basement. Flash after flash of the camera illuminated the small space, revealing its concrete walls and the bolted chair at its center. But it was the wall of photographs that held the key to the mystery, each image a meticulous chronicle of the Mercer family's every move. As the investigation unfolded, a disturbing pattern emerged. previous owners of the house, their fingerprints lingering in the shadows, seemed to have a presence in the basement as well. The house's history, shrouded in darkness, revealed a series of unsettling events that had gone unnoticed by each passing family. Interviews with former owners and a deep dive into the property's records unveiled a web of deception and manipulation. Blueprints altered, permits withdrawn, and inspection reports redacted all pointed to a hidden truth lurking within the walls of the house. The breakthrough came when a contractor, involved in the house's renovation years earlier, denied the existence of the basement they had uncovered. His denial sent a chill down the investigators' spines, hinting at a malevolent force at play. Digital forensics uncovered a treasure trove of surveillance materials, hidden cameras, audio recordings, and a journal filled with unsettling observations. The journal's author, Edward Kelvin, the house's original builder, had seemingly vanished into obscurity, leaving behind a legacy of voyeurism and obsession. The final revelation came when Kelvin himself was discovered, a ghostly figure hidden within the house's very structure. His delusions painted a picture of ownership and control over the families who had unknowingly inhabited his domain. As the legal proceedings unfolded, Kelvin's twisted fantasies were laid bare, exposing the depth of his intrusion into the lives of those who had crossed his path. The house, once a sanctuary, now stood as a monument to his dark legacy, a legacy that would haunt the memories of its former inhabitants for years to come. The demolition of the property marked the end of a chapter, but for those who had called it home, the scars of Kelvin's voyeurism ran deep. The shadows of the past lingered in the corners of their minds, a constant reminder of the unseen eyes that had watched their every move. And as they moved on, carrying only the essentials in their suitcases, they couldn't help but wonder, were they truly alone now, or was Kelvin's presence still lingering in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself once more in the dead of night? Story 19. In the quiet stillness of the night, a tale unfolded within the walls of a Victorian-era home. Michael and Sarah Klein, the new inhabitants, embarked on a journey of discovery that began innocently enough with peeling wallpaper. What they initially mistook for a simple renovation project revealed itself to be a portal to a hidden past. Layer by layer, as the wallpaper gave way, a haunting narrative emerged. Inked in a frenzy of repetition, a name echoed throughout the room: Eleanor Winters. The name, unfamiliar yet compelling, beckoned them into a mystery shrouded in obscurity. As the couple delved deeper, their peaceful abode transformed into a realm of enigma and intrigue. The name, Eleanor Winters, etched into the walls, defied explanation and led them down a path of unexpected revelations. With each layer they peeled back, the walls whispered a story of a woman lost to time, an echo of a past that refused to be forgotten. The name, a constant presence, cast a shadow of unease over the once familiar rooms. In their quest for answers, Michael and Sarah uncovered a link between the enigmatic Eleanor Winters and the enigmatic Margaret Cavendish, the previous owner of the house. A missing persons case from decades past intertwined their fates in a web of mystery and deceit. The walls, once silent witnesses to the passage of time, now bore the weight of a dark secret. Eleanor's disappearance, unsolved and haunting, echoed through the corridors of the old house, demanding to be heard. As the investigation deepened, the boundaries between past and present blurred. The lines of reality became tangled, revealing a truth more chilling than they could have imagined. Through hidden spaces and forgotten corners, the truth unraveled like a thread, connecting the disparate pieces of a puzzle long forgotten. Alina Winters, Rebecca Eldridge, Margaret Cavendish, the names intertwined in a dance of identities and deception. In the stillness of the night, as shadows danced across the walls, the house whispered its secrets to those who dared to listen. The truth, buried beneath layers of time and memory, emerged like a specter from the past, demanding justice. And as dawn broke over the horizon, casting its golden light upon the worn façade of the Victorian-era home, the mystery of Alina Winters and Rebecca Eldridge finally found closure. The walls, once silent witnesses to a tragedy long forgotten, now stood as a testament to the enduring power of truth and redemption. In the hush of the morning, as the world awakened to a new day, the house stood silent, its secrets laid bare for all to see. And in that moment of quiet reflection, Michael and Sarah knew that they had been part of something greater than themselves, a tale of mystery, intrigue, and ultimately of redemption. Story 20. The tale unfolds in the quiet stillness of a closing costume shop, where shadows dance upon shelves laden with forgotten treasures. Among the relics of a bygone era, a woman's gaze falls upon a mask, nestled in a corner, its features both delicate and disquietingly lifelike. Dust motes swirl as she lifts it, feeling a strange pull in its unsettling beauty. Placing it on the worn counter, the cashier hesitates, a flicker of unease crossing his features as he mutters, "That's not ours." Bewildered, the woman inspects the mask, searching in vain for a tag that might offer a clue to its origin. With a nonchalant shrug, she decides to take it home, unaware of the enigmatic journey that awaits her in the depths of the night. As the moon casts its silvery glow through parted curtains, a soft rustle stirs the silence, drawing her from slumber. A whisper of fabric shifting, a presence unseen. Her heart quickens as she searches the room, only to find the mask perched upon her nightstand, its gaze fixed upon her like a silent sentinel. In the light of dawn, a neighbor's footsteps echo through the quietude, drawn by a sense of unease that lingers in the air. The door stands ajar, inviting the morning light to spill into the shadows of the somber abode. Within, a scene unfolds that would haunt the corridors of investigation for years to come. Catherine Reed, once a soul adrift in the realm of art appraisal, now lies motionless upon the cold embrace of her bedroom floor. The mask, a phantom in its own right, has vanished into the ether, leaving behind only questions shrouded in mystery. Detective Morgan arrives, her presence a beacon of logic in a sea of uncertainty. With measured steps, she navigates the scene, a symphony of shutter clicks accompanying her silent contemplation. Details whisper their secrets to her keen gaze: a jar drawer, lipstick-stained glass, a life extinguished in the stillness of the night. The medical examiner's somber assessment offers no solace, for the cause of Catherine's demise remains veiled in shadows. No visible wounds, no signs of struggle, only the echo of terror etched upon her frozen visage, a silent scream in the void of the unknown. As the investigation unfurls its tendrils, a tapestry of intrigue woven from threads of the past begins to take shape. Security footage unveils a cryptic dance within the costume shop where the enigmatic mask first whispered its siren song to fate. The owner's words, laden with unspoken truths, hint at a darker tapestry woven by hands long turned to dust. Items acquired from the estate of a collector, a life eclipsed by sinister circumstances, each piece a fragment of a puzzle lost to time. Forensics, diligent in their pursuit of truth, uncover a cryptic trail, microscopic fibers entwined with Catherine's fading grasp, a testament to a struggle unseen. Human hair and an elusive organic substance intertwine, a riddle begging to be solved. Across the annals of history, shadows dance to a macabre tune, each victim a note in a symphony of fear orchestrated by an unseen maestro. Masks, vessels of ancient power, wielders of terror beyond mortal ken, claim their due in the dead of night. A retired detective, haunted by the specters of the past, offers a key to unlock the mysteries that bind the present to an age-old curse. Ancient symbols, a scholar's warning, a ritual of soul transference woven into the fabric of time. In the depths of Catherine's dwelling, a journal whispers secrets long kept hidden, a chronicle of fear and a descent into madness. The mask's malevolent sentience, its hunger for souls, laid bare in frantic strokes upon weathered pages. The detective, a guardian of truth in a world adrift in shadows, pieces together the fragments of a puzzle too sinister to ignore. Cardiac arrest, a heart stilled by terror, unimaginable, the final verse in a tragic symphony conducted by unseen hands. Surveillance footage unveils a chilling truth, a figure cloaked in darkness, wearing Catherine's visage like a macabre masquerade. A mimicry of life, a puppet of the mask's insidious design, moving with a semblance of humanity, yet devoid of soul. The hunt for the missing mask spans oceans and time, a specter lurking in the periphery of existence, waiting to claim its next unwitting host. Reports of its reappearance send shivers through the investigative ranks, a reminder of a darkness that knows no bounds. The detective, keeper of Catherine's truth, guards her journal as a relic of the past, a testament to a reality too twisted for the light of day. In the quiet of night, she feels the mask's unseen gaze upon her, a chill that lingers in the shadows of her thoughts. Locks secured, windows barred, she drifts into uneasy slumber, knowing that somewhere out there, the mask waits in patient silence. A harbinger of fear, a vessel of ancient malice, biding its time until it finds a new bearer, a new victim in the endless dance of death and despair. And so, the mask remains a phantom in the tapestry of existence, a specter of horror that defies explanation, a reminder that some mysteries are best left undisturbed, lest they awaken a darkness that hungers for the light of the living. Story 21. The worn-down hotel sat silent, its faded exterior hinting at stories untold. Guests came and went, drawn by the allure of a cheap night's stay. The clerk, a man of few words, handed her the key with a gaze that lingered longer than necessary. Just avoid the last door on the left, his voice barely above a whisper. Intrigue danced in her mind as she accepted the key. That night, with the hallway shrouded in shadows, she found herself standing before the forbidden door. The brass handle felt like ice under her touch, sending a shiver down her spine. To the naked eye, the door was unremarkable, blending in with its neighbors. but when she pressed her ear against it, a soft, rhythmic breath brushed against her senses, sending a chill through her bones. Detective Morgan Reed's eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the harsh crime scene lights as she entered the room marked by yellow tape. The metallic tang of blood greeted her, a scent that spoke of tragedy. The room, a canvas of contradictions, held the remnants of a life interrupted. A young woman lay motionless on the floor, her golden locks splayed around her like a tragic halo. Her vacant gaze met Reed's, freezing her in a moment of eternal shock. Careful not to disturb the scene, Reed knelt beside the victim, absorbing the gravity of the situation. "The third one," remarked the technician, his tone devoid of emotion as he captured the scene with his camera. "Same as before." Nodded, her mind racing with unanswered questions. The victim's attire clashed with the motel's decrepit surroundings, a puzzle waiting to be solved. The hotel manager lingered nearby, his features etched with fear and disbelief. "She checked in alone, paid in cash," he stammered, his voice trailing off. "I never expected." Reed absorbed the manager's words, piecing together the fragments of a tragic tale. No signs of struggle, no defensive wounds. The victim had let her guard down, a fatal mistake. Back at the station, Reed delved into the case, each photo on the board a piece of a macabre puzzle. 3 women linked by tragedy, their lives cut short in lonely motel rooms. The media buzzed with speculation, painting a portrait of a predator lurking in the shadows. "Autopsies in," announced Detective Hayes, breaking the silence. "Death by strangulation, no signs of sexual assault." Reed's brow furrowed, sensing a personal vendetta at play. Days turned into nights as the investigation deepened, revealing layers of deceit and betrayal. Surveillance footage yielded no clues, leaving more questions than answers. Elaine Werner, the victim, a woman of precision and caution, seemed an unlikely target for such a fate. A breakthrough came when Werner's sister shared a cryptic detail, a man known only as C, a figure from Werner's workplace. Reed's instincts guided her to Charles Emerson, a charming executive with a hidden darkness. Emerson's alibi crumbled under Reed's scrutiny, his facade slipping with each probing question. A trace of guilt flickered in his eyes, a crack in his polished exterior. Forensic evidence tied Emerson to the crime, exposing his web of lies. In a chilling confession, he revealed a twisted obsession with women who mirrored his wife in her youth. Motels became his hunting grounds, each room a stage for his dark fantasies. The trial unveiled the depths of Emerson's depravity, his stoic demeanor a facade for his inner turmoil. Justice was served, but for Reed, the echoes of the door on the left case lingered. Behind bars, Emerson's hollow gaze met hers, a void devoid of remorse or humanity. The media dissected the case, psychologists delved into his psyche, but for Reed, the truth remained elusive. The hotel keys, silent witnesses to unspeakable horrors, lay dormant in the evidence locker, a reminder that some doors, once opened, reveal a darkness that can never be erased. And as Reed walked down dimly lit hallways, she couldn't help but wonder about the secrets that lurked behind closed doors, a mystery that haunted her dreams. Story 22. The aged apartment exuded a sense of history, its walls holding secrets whispered through time. The heating system emitted a low groan, the pipes rattling in a familiar symphony of age. It was all part of the building's character. Or so she believed until that fateful moment. A voice, barely audible yet undeniably present, drifted through the labyrinth of vents, reaching her ears like a ghostly caress. It wasn't the typical sounds of everyday life filtering through the metal passages. This voice was different. It whispered, calling out her name into the dimness of the apartment. Intrigued and unnerved, she leaned closer, pressing her ear against the rusty grate, her heart quickening its pace. A chill brushed against her cheek, a soft breath carrying words that seemed to dance on the edge of reality. "I know you can hear me," the voice murmured, almost teasingly. Detective Morgan Shaw stood in the midst of the silent apartment, a shroud of mystery enveloping the space. Her gaze fixated on the vent cover, now pried open and rusted with neglect. The forensic team moved around her with precision, documenting every detail with flashes of light from their cameras. The missing woman, Alina Reeves, had vanished without a trace until the scent of decay alerted the building's inhabitants to her absence. Officer Patel recited notes from his pad, recounting Alina's claims of hearing voices through the vents, dismissed by the building management as mere quirks of an old structure. Shaw knelt beside the vent, tracing the deep scratches surrounding it with a thoughtful expression. The marks seemed frantic, as if someone had desperately tried to escape from within. Alina, a beloved kindergarten teacher with a penchant for nurturing houseplants, had left behind a void that echoed in the hearts of those who knew her. Her disappearance had been shrouded in paranoia and whispers that seemed to seep from the very walls of her apartment. As Shaw delved deeper into the case, she uncovered unsettling details that painted a chilling portrait of Alina's final days. Fibers from her favorite cardigan caught in the vent, a mysterious fingerprint on the inside of the cover not belonging to Alina, and haunting audio recordings from her phone. The building itself held a dark history, with past tenants fleeing under mysterious circumstances, haunted by unseen forces lurking within the walls. The superintendent, Harold Weber, maintained a facade of normalcy, but a closer look revealed a sinister undercurrent in his interactions with Shaw. The investigation took a twisted turn when a hidden passage behind a loose tile unveiled a secret realm within the apartment's walls, a space where someone had been living, watching, and whispering to unsuspecting ears. Weber's meticulously organized files and disturbing digital journal painted a picture of obsession and possession, culminating in a chilling revelation of his true intentions. The artifacts found in a storage unit tied him to a pattern of predatory behavior that spanned years. As the trial unfolded, Shaw confronted Weber's unnerving calmness and his delusions of a symbiotic relationship with the building. The verdict of guilt rang through the courtroom, but Weber's haunting words lingered in the air, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked within the walls. Now the once vibrant apartment building stands empty, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded within its confines. Despite attempts at renovation and renewal, whispers still echo through the vents, and residents speak of cold drafts carrying voices from the past. The building's aging infrastructure groans and rattles, a testament to the secrets it holds. And as night falls, the shadows seem to whisper tales of a presence that lingers, a reminder that some mysteries are never truly put to rest. Story 23. She never fancied ascending there, but when the tempest triggered a leak in the roof, she had no option. The attic was brimming with forsaken things, cloaked in dust and cobwebs. Tucked away in the farthest nook rested an ancient dollhouse, eerily intricate, its minuscule furniture meticulously arranged. Yet as she gazed inside, her gut churned. The figures within weren't mere dolls. They were diminutive, hand-carved replicas of her kin, every figure placed precisely where they had been seated downstairs. Apart from one, the figure meant to portray her was standing by the attic door. Rebecca Morgan trailed her finger along the dollhouse roof, sensing the imprint where the small wooden figure stood. The revelation sent a shiver through her being that had naught to do with the chilly draft whistling through the rafters. The dollhouse had no place there at all. This wasn't her childhood abode, but a rented dwelling the family had just relocated to weeks ago. The saga commenced with Rebecca's frantic call to law enforcement. Officers arrived at the suburban abode to find a family in turmoil, clustered in their living space, refusing to venture upstairs. The lead investigator, Detective Sarah Harmon, initially brushed off their apprehensions as an elaborate prank or perchance the vivid imagination of a family adapting to an unfamiliar abode. The intricacy is what struck me, Detective Harmon would later reminisce during interviews. Every miniature figurine encapsulated something distinct about each family member: the father's receding hairline, the teenage son's hoodie, even the small birthmark on the mother's hand. The probe took a turn when forensic teams unearthed fingerprints on the dollhouse that matched none of the family members. More disconcerting still were microscopic cameras discovered embedded in the eyes of each miniature figure, all linked to a sophisticated recording system concealed beneath the dollhouse itself. Scrutiny of the Morgan family's movements over preceding days unveiled an unsettling pattern. The positions of the figures in the dollhouse not only mirrored where the family had been seated that evening, they replicated exact positions from varied days, hinting that someone had been surveilling them long enough to learn their routines. We realized we weren't grappling with a simple case of stalking, explicated Detective Harmon. The perpetrator exhibited a level of fixation scarcely documented in criminal psychology literature. The investigation unveiled a concealed basement entrance, concealed behind a false partition in the pantry. Inside, investigators stumbled upon a makeshift living area with signs that someone had been dwelling there even before the Morgans moved in. Food wrappers, water bottles, and a sleeping bag implied the intruder had been residing beneath the family's feet for weeks. What confounded investigators most was the dearth of forced entry. Property records disclosed that the house had remained vacated for nearly a year prior to the Morgans' arrival. The former owners, an elderly pair, had both passed away within months of each other. Their son had overseen the estate's sale and subsequent rental of the property. Conversations with neighbors yielded scant information. Most hadn't observed anything out of the ordinary, though one elderly lady mentioned sporadically witnessing lights in the house during its vacancy period. I presumed it was the real estate folks showcasing the property, she divulged to investigators. Never dawned on me that someone might be residing there without permission. The breakthrough emerged through digital forensics. Scrutinizing the surveillance system linked to the miniature cameras, analysts unearthed that the data was being transmitted to an external server. The IP address steered investigators to a petite apartment across town. Inside, they stumbled upon walls adorned with snapshots of the Morgan family and former residents of the house. Diary entries delineated the daily routines of each family member with chilling accuracy. The most bone-chilling revelation was a workshop containing scores of partially crafted dollhouses, each depicting different residences in the vicinity. The apartment belonged to Martin Wells, the son of the previous homeowners. His financial accounts evidenced mounting debt following his parents' demise. Instead of vending the house outright, he had fashioned the concealed living space, persisting to inhabit it while collecting rent from unsuspecting tenants. The dollhouse was his command center, expounded the forensic psychologist assigned to the case. Every figure represented someone he observed. The figure of Rebecca by the attic door wasn't a menace, it was his method of acknowledging her unearthing of his surveillance system. Throughout interrogation, Wells remained unnervingly composed as he expounded his rationale. They were residing in my house, slumbering in my parents' chamber. I needed to ensure they were treating it with reverence. When probed about the positioned figures, he merely stated, "I wanted them to comprehend I was forever watching." The psychological evaluation unveiled a convoluted case of possessive delusion. Wells couldn't emotionally grapple with losing his childhood abode and fabricated an intricate system to retain dominion over it. The dollhouse had evolved into his way of seizing both the property and its occupants. The Morgan family never set foot in the house again. Rebecca subsequently reminisced on the instant that haunted her most wasn't discovering the dollhouse, but grasping its significance. Someone had been observing us all along, scrutinizing our lives, transforming us into playthings. The genuine horror wasn't the dollhouse itself, it was realizing that in his mind, we were merely dolls to be arranged and watched. Wells faced multiple charges of stalking, invasion of privacy, illicit surveillance, and illegal entry. The case spurred a reassessment of real estate disclosure laws concerning deaths on properties and the obligation of agents to ensure homes are duly vacated before new occupants take residence. During sentencing, the judge underscored the exceptional violation the Morgan family had endured. You didn't just infringe upon their abode, you invaded their sense of security and independence. You observed their most intimate moments and reenacted them for your gratification. What renders the case particularly perturbing to criminologists is how long Wells might have persisted undetected had Rebecca not stumbled upon the dollhouse. Forensic scrutiny of his diaries hinted that he had been covertly residing within homes for nearly 2 years, transitioning from one property to another, crafting dollhouses of each family under his watch. The Morgan family eventually located a new abode far away, but Rebecca conceded in victim impact statements that she still inspects closets and crawl spaces routinely. She eliminated all dollhouses and miniatures from their new dwelling. "Some days I still feel like I'm being watched," she disclosed. "I ponder if somewhere, someone is still maneuvering a tiny version of me around in a dollhouse I haven't discovered yet." Story 24. In the quiet stillness of the night, a phone call pierced through the static, a mere whisper in the darkness. The operator, initially dismissing it as a pocket dial, paused as a frantic voice broke through the noise. A woman's urgent plea echoed, "He's here." He, and then silence enveloped the line once more. The number traced back to an old, deserted house, standing as a relic of a forgotten time. Dust settled on every surface, memories lingering in the shadows. Detective Morgan Reed, drawn to the mysterious call, found herself standing in the abandoned kitchen. There on the counter sat a phone, its screen softly illuminating the room. The call had been placed mere moments ago, yet the house appeared untouched by human hands for years. As Morgan pressed play on the recording for the 5th time, the haunting whisper echoed in the empty space, a voice filled with desperation, fear, and an air of impossibility. The Sullivan family once lived within these walls until a tragic fire forced them to flee, leaving the house to the mercy of time. The caretaker's visits were the only reminder of life in this ghostly place. Background check on the number. Morgan inquired of her partner, Detective Walsh. The answer revealed a startling truth. The number belonged to Catherine Sullivan, the deceased daughter of the family, a young woman whose life had been cut short in a car accident 3 years prior. The pieces of the puzzle refused to fit together. A phone, once belonging to a woman long gone, making calls from a house frozen in time. The forensic team's examination yielded little. A phone devoid of fingerprints, a house devoid of intruders, a mystery devoid of answers. The recording, those 11 eerie seconds, became the heart of their investigation. Voice analysis confirmed the voice as Catherine's with an unsettling 98% certainty. The timestamp marked the call at the exact moment of her death, a chilling coincidence that defied reason. Interviews with those who knew Catherine unraveled a tale of love turned sinister. Mark Jennings, her boyfriend at the time of her passing, stood at the center of the storm. Yet his alibi held strong, his whereabouts accounted for on the night of the ghostly call. The case lay dormant until a discovery within Catherine's old journal breathed new life into the investigation. Details of a relationship veering into darkness, of fear and impending danger, painted a grim picture of her final days. Confronted with the journal's revelations, Mark's facade crumbled, his lies unraveling in the face of damning evidence. A buried phone, unearthed secrets, and the truth clawing its way to the surface. The manhunt for Mark led back to the Sullivan house, where he sat in eerie stillness, a mirror image of the past. His twisted games exposed, his crimes laid bare before the eyes of justice. As the courtroom rendered its verdict, Catherine's mother clutched the journal close, a silent witness to her daughter's struggle. The phone, now a relic of a bygone mystery, whispered no more, its silent vigil at an end. In the quiet of the evidence locker, where shadows danced in the dim light, the phone sat as a testament to a voice silenced but not forgotten. Catherine's story, a tale of courage and resilience, echoed through the halls of justice, a reminder that even in death, the truth will find a way to speak. Story 25. In the quiet of the morning, a peculiar package arrived on Sarah Miller's doorstep. Unmarked, untraceable, it beckoned her with a mysterious allure. The cardboard box, touched by the gentle embrace of dawn's dew, held a secret within its dampened walls. It bore no return label, no tracking number, only an enigma waiting to unfold. Sarah hesitated, feeling the weight of the unknown in her hands. The package was not intended for her. The name inscribed upon it, Daniel Whittaker, a stranger in her world. Yet curiosity whispered its seductive plea, urging her to uncover the contents concealed within. With a cautious resolve, she breached the seal of tape, expecting mundane treasures to greet her eyes. But fate had a different plan. Nestled within the confines of the box lay a relic of the past, a VHS tape, a relic of bygone days, accompanied by a solitary sticky note bearing a cryptic command, "Watch alone." The black plastic cassette felt heavy in Sarah's grasp, its presence laden with a significance she could not decipher. Tracing her fingers along its worn edges, she felt the pulse of anticipation thrumming beneath her skin. The handwritten note, etched with urgency, spoke of a tale untold, a message meant for her and her alone. As she stood in her kitchen, the suburban symphony of everyday life played on outside, dogs barking, children laughing, lawnmowers humming a stark contrast to the clandestine parcel now in her possession. The world continued its rhythm, unaware of the secrets harbored within the walls of her home. Against her better judgment, Sarah succumbed to the pull of curiosity. She slid the tape into her old VCR, the static crackling to life on the screen before sharpening into focus. A dimly lit room materialized, casting shadows of intrigue upon her walls. A man, Daniel Whitaker, emerged from the darkness, his voice a solemn whisper in the stillness. "My name is Daniel Whitaker," his words echoed through the room, carrying a weight of truth and trepidation. "If you're watching this, someone found you, which means they'll find me too." His confession unfolded, a tale of innocence shrouded in deception. He spoke of a crime he did not commit, of evidence planted to incriminate him in a murder he had no part in. The room around him bore the marks of a transient existence, a life lived on the edge of shadows and suspicion. Detective Eliza Ramirez, haunted by the enigma of the tapes, delved into a world of lies and deceit. The case of Catherine Walsh's murder unraveled before her eyes, revealing a web of corruption that threatened to consume all in its path. As the truth emerged from the shadows, Sarah found herself entwined in a conspiracy beyond her wildest imaginings. A second package arrived, bearing the damning proof of innocence and guilt intertwined in a dance of corporate malfeasance. With each tape, each revelation, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Daniel Whitaker's quest for redemption mirrored Sarah's own journey of discovery, leading them down a path fraught with danger and deceit. In a final act of defiance, Sarah and Detective Ramirez uncovered the truth hidden in plain sight. In a storage unit, the evidence lay bare, a testament to the power of perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. Justice, though delayed, arrived in a quiet triumph. The perpetrators unmasked, the truth laid bare, a semblance of peace restored to a world tainted by corruption and greed. As Daniel Whitaker reclaimed his name and his freedom, Sarah stood by his side, a silent witness to the unraveling of a mystery that had touched them both. In the hush of the night, they shared a moment of understanding, of gratitude for the unexpected twist of fate that had brought them together. The VHS tapes, once symbols of deceit and manipulation, now stood as relics of a journey completed, a reminder that truth, however elusive, would always find its way to those brave enough to seek it. And in the stillness of the night, as sleep beckoned with its gentle embrace, Sarah closed her eyes, knowing that justice, in its own mysterious way, had been served. Story 26, the Polaroid lay nestled among forgotten memories, a snapshot frozen in time. Smiles illuminated by flickering candles, a scene of familial bliss captured for eternity. Yet within the borders of the image, a subtle disturbance lurked. A shadowy figure, barely discernible, lingered in the background, just beyond the circle of light cast by the candles. He was a phantom presence, elusive and unknown to those in the photograph. Sarah Winters stumbled upon this unsettling collection while sifting through her mother's attic after the solemnity of a funeral. The box, nondescript but laden with the weight of the past, held a multitude of aged photographs chronicling bygone family gatherings. What should have been a comforting journey down memory lane transformed into a descent into darkness. The first photo revealed the figure as a mere silhouette on the periphery of her 7th birthday celebration. Subsequent images unveiled his progression, moving from the edge of the frame to a haunting proximity behind her loved ones. He appeared to be an interloper in the cherished moments frozen in time, a specter unnoticed by all but Sarah. Puzzled and apprehensive, she reached out to her father, seeking answers to the enigma captured in the photographs. His initial denial gave way to unease as he too observed the haunting figure lurking within the images. A sense of foreboding crept into their conversation, shrouded in an unsettling mystery that defied explanation. With a heavy heart, Sarah sought the aid of Detective Marcus Reed, laying bare the chilling evidence before him. As rain tapped against the windows, casting ethereal shadows, the detective delved into the enigma with a practiced eye. The progression of the figure through the frames revealed a deliberate, disquieting advance towards the unsuspecting children in the photographs. Despite exhaustive inquiries, the identity of the shadowy figure remained elusive. Facial recognition faltered, witnesses failed to recall his presence, and the remote location of the gatherings offered no clues. It seemed as though the enigmatic figure was a phantom, a ghostly presence woven into the fabric of the past. Yet as Sarah delved deeper into the family albums, more chilling revelations emerged. The figure appeared in disparate gatherings across different years, a constant yet unnoticed observer of joyous occasions. Through advanced imaging techniques, hidden details surfaced, linking the spectral figure to a dark and sinister past. The breakthrough came with the revelation of Robert Keller, a maintenance worker with a sinister history tied to unsolved child abductions. His presence in the photographs hinted at a malevolent force that had eluded justice for decades. The pieces of a macabre puzzle began to align, connecting the shadowy figure to a trail of tragedy and loss. As authorities unearthed long-buried secrets and uncovered remains near the vacation properties linked to Keller, a sense of closure mingled with sorrow. Families found answers they had long sought, though they were tainted with the bitter truth of past horrors. The shadow in the photographs had finally been unmasked, his nefarious deeds exposed to the light of justice. Alone in her quiet apartment, Sarah pondered the photos that had unraveled a tapestry of darkness. The figure, once hidden in the shadows of memory, now stood revealed in all his malevolence. As she placed the photographs back into the box, they bore witness to a chilling truth that sometimes the most insidious threats are those that lurk unseen in the corners of celebration, leaving behind a trail of unseen devastation in their wake. Story 27. She wiped the steam off the mirror, gazing at her reflection. Yet an unsettling feeling crept in. Her face appeared normal, her attire unchanged. But the longer she peered, the more a sense of unease settled within her. A flicker caught in her peripheral vision, a movement unaccounted for. As she turned away, her reflection remained motionless, observing. The enigma of Rebecca Thorne commenced in that eerie moment in her bathroom. What unfolded would baffle investigators and haunt a community for years to come. Rebecca resided solo in a humble apartment nestled in a tranquil suburban enclave. Known for her methodical nature and reserved demeanor, she kept to herself while maintaining a polite rapport with neighbors. A data analyst by profession, her life revolved around routine and precision. Nothing hinted that she would become the focal point of one of the most perplexing criminal inquiries of the era. The initial peculiar incident seemed innocuous. Objects in Rebecca's abode had shifted places, nothing missing, just rearranged. A coffee mug relocated to a different shelf, books shuffled, her toothbrush on the opposite side of the sink. She brushed off these anomalies as mere lapses, attributing them to long hours spent immersed in work, staring at spreadsheets until her vision blurred. Detective Marion Shaw received the initial complaint when Rebecca, after enduring weeks of disturbances, finally reached out to the authorities. The initial assessment, no signs of criminal activity, possibly a matter for mental health services rather than law enforcement. Shaw noted the grievance but stored it among the pile of non-urgent cases. No concrete evidence, Shaw later testified. No broken locks, no missing items, just a woman sensing something amiss in her abode. The pivotal moment arrived with the bathroom mirror incident. During her subsequent interaction with the police, Rebecca recounted it vividly how her reflection seemed to move independently, how a sensation of being watched pervaded her solitude. This time she presented proof. Security footage from a camera she had installed aimed at her front door. The footage unveiled a chilling revelation that even seasoned officers found unsettling. The grainy video captured Rebecca departing for work in the morning. Yet 20 minutes later, someone identical to her used a key to enter her apartment. Forensic analysts scrutinized the footage for signs of tampering or manipulation. None were found. The individual entering mimicked Rebecca's movements, attire, and even carried her distinct leather bag. However, according to time-stamped footage from her workplace security system, Rebecca had already swiped her badge at her office building across town. We're facing a doppelganger scenario, Detective Shaw informed her superior. Someone who has meticulously studied Ms. Thorne and can replicate her with uncanny precision. The investigation intensified. Fingerprints within the apartment matched only Rebecca's. No foreign DNA surfaced. Neighbors reported routine sightings of Rebecca, nothing out of the ordinary. Mrs. Keller, a neighbor, mentioned a peculiar encounter when she greeted Rebecca upon her return one evening, receiving no response, which struck her as unusual but not alarming. Rebecca initiated a journal documenting the disturbances. Minor alterations within her dwelling escalated. Unaccounted for food vanished from her refrigerator. Her computer displayed searches she did not conduct. Most unsettling were photographs on her phone selfies resembling her, yet she possessed no recollection of capturing them. In some images, her countenance seemed subtly awry, the smile too wide, the eyes excessively intense. "I feel as though I'm losing my mind," she confided to Detective Shaw during their third meeting. Or perhaps someone is orchestrating this delusion. A breakthrough emerged when investigators discerned a pattern in the security footage. The doppelganger only infiltrated when Rebecca departed for specific engagements, therapy sessions, yoga classes, Sunday morning grocery trips, predetermined activities with foreseeable durations. "Someone is well acquainted with your routine," Shaw elucidated. "This isn't random. It's a targeted surveillance and infiltration." A forensic psychologist theorized they were confronting a fixation case, someone fixated on assuming Rebecca's identity, living her life, potentially aiming to supplant her entirely. Such instances were rare yet documented in psychological archives. The culprit generally underwent a psychological breakdown, fixating on a victim embodying traits they coveted: stability, beauty, success, normalcy. The investigation homed in on a former colleague, Lily Winters, who had been terminated due to escalating erratic behavior. Lily had closely collaborated with Rebecca, often remarking on their resemblances. Post-dismissal, she sent Rebecca a series of unsettling emails. "We could be interchangeable," one missive read. "At times, I feel more like you than you do." Detective Shaw secured a warrant to search Lily's residence. Unveiling the discovery metamorphosed the case from unsettling to harrowing. One chamber in Lily's dwelling had been transformed into a shrine-like replica of Rebecca's bedroom. The walls adorned with photographs, countless snapshots of Rebecca entering her abode, shopping, socializing, all clandestinely taken. A closet harbored exact replicas of Rebecca's wardrobe. Makeup mirroring Rebecca's preferred brands adorned a vanity, accompanied by meticulous notes regarding her mannerisms, speech patterns, and daily routines. The most incriminating evidence surfaced in the form of practice videos. Lily had documented herself mimicking Rebecca's gait, gestures, expressions. The evolution was apparent, initial attempts clumsy and overt, later ones nearly indistinguishable from the authentic Rebecca. "She aspired to become me," Rebecca murmured upon viewing the evidence. "She wasn't merely imitating me, she was erasing me." Forensic specialists uncovered sophisticated equipment for crafting duplicate keys and replicating electronic access cards. Lily had maintained an intricate system to trail Rebecca's movements, including a calendar predicting her agenda meticulously. What eluded investigators was Lily's ultimate objective. Journals unearthed in her abode contained incoherent entries vacillating between first and third person, at times referring to Rebecca as me and her in the same paragraph. The final entry unnerved investigators. "Soon, only one of us will prevail. The stronger variant shall endure." Upon authorities moving to apprehend Lily, she had vanished. Her apartment bore signs of abrupt departure, drawers ajar, certain technology absent. A nationwide alert was disseminated. Rebecca entered protective custody, relocated to a secure haven under constant surveillance. For 3 weeks, authorities monitored every locale linked to her previous life. Lily never materialized. The case assumed a chilling turn when a security guard at Rebecca's former workplace reported an anomaly. Rebecca had been sighted entering the building despite being on leave. Security footage authenticated the claim a figure identical to Rebecca accessed the premises using a valid ID card, proceeded to her previous workstation, and spent 40 minutes perusing her files before departing. Meanwhile, Rebecca, safeguarded in a fortified safe house, couldn't have been present at the office. The realization dawned. Lily had not absconded, she had made her move. She now inhabited Rebecca's existence, usurping her identity while the genuine Rebecca remained concealed. The case remains officially unresolved. Lily Winters remains at large. Rebecca Thorne refrained from resuming her former life, opting to forge a fresh identity in an undisclosed location. Detective Shaw preserves a photograph on her desk, 2 women uncannily resembling each other. One is Rebecca Thorne. The other is Lily Winters. At times, she scrutinizes their features, seeking disparities, the subtle cues distinguishing one from the other. The most petrifying aspect, Shaw imparts to new recruits in the force, is not that someone resembles you or echoes your voice. It's the fervor with which they yearn to embody you, to the extent of effacing themselves in the process. Identity transcends mere presentation, it embodies our most closely guarded essence. and sometimes we realize its worth only when someone endeavors to pilfer it.